Hey everybody, it's Mir. I'm here with Jarkey Bacon once again.
It's me back at it again with another. What is this? What's this manga called? Oh yeah, Planetes, the greatest manga to grace our great eyes. Buy the volumes. Do not read it online. It looks awful online. Buy the volumes.
It does look awful online.
Do not.
We're here, Planetes Volume 3. These are we're going by the Japanese volumes, but we are reading the English omnibus volumes. So for the omnibus volume, we are on Volume 2 in the sort of first half. Mm-hmm. And there is one chapter actually at the end of last book, right? At the end of Omnibus 1 that's included in this. Yeah. So end of Omnibus 1 into Omnibus 2. Mm-hmm. So this volume, man, I read it immediately after our last recording because I was just so invested in like, where is this going to go? Because like I said at the end of last video, like it felt like we reached a sort of like stopping point where Hachimaki has figured it all out. So what's going to happen now? So I immediately had to read to know. And I absolutely adore where this volume went. In a lot of ways, this might actually be my favorite volume, even though it's like a very kind of, I don't know, laid back volume. It's very introspective and has a lot of like, I don't know, I feel like subtlety that I really loved about it. But this also felt like probably one of the more complicated volumes in terms of like trying to understand what Yukimura is saying and what like, you know, what flaws in Hachimaki he wants us to understand. What are these like symbolism when a character's having a conversation? Like, what are they trying to get across? And most of this, the, like, more in-depth stuff, I was just, like, I had to abandon it on my first read and be like, I'll understand this later. I don't quite understand. And
for sure.
The perfect introduction to that is this first conversation with Sally at the start of Chapter 12 about the sun. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was writing my notes, I started it with, this had me at a bit of a loss, and then I went off on my long interpretation, but I'd like to ask you what your interpretation of this little conversation here is first.
So the quote is, when the sun recedes and the evening comes, 11 billion people light up the evening with a sudden surge of electricity. It's quite a sight, but why obscure the beauty above them? And then Sally responds, because you can't stay in the dark when you've got stuff to do. I think that's a pretty, to me, it's kind of like, it's an emulation, not an emulation, it's like it's an allegory, I guess, or a metaphor to what Hachi had done in the previous volume. And in the sense is like, they stop looking at the natural beauty, stop taking their time, stop looking at the grandness above them, and instead just focus on the day-to-day and the busyness and let themselves be fulfilled by that. And it's kind of like the lights in a way, while the light... there's a beautiful like symbolism to like how lighting up the world around you can obscure the light above, which is like so unique to like light pollution in general. Like you don't really think about it, but when you go camping, like I mean, we're both urbanites. So I feel like we're both pretty city based, and then you go camping once in a while, and then you just see the stars, and it's incredible.
Exactly. Yeah. It is something I actually think about quite a lot because I had a little like a little trip with my uncle when I was younger, and he took me to like this campground it was during the winter, so nobody was there. And he brought a telescope, and we just looked at the stars. And I remember thinking, like, were these always up there? Like, I was, like, you know, a little kid. I'm just so blown away by how many there are. And he explained light pollution to me. So that's been, like, a core memory that just sits with me. Yeah. So I immediately thought about it when this was being talked about.
Yeah. And there's something so unique about the feeling of... So my grandparents in Canada, they live on a farm. So when we go out there, you're always seeing the stars at night. And so sometimes we get home late at like 10 p.m. after like an evening meal or something. And I just go on their lawn or they've got like a slight hill. Because they live on a farm, they got tons of land. And you just sit there. It's a warm summer's evening and you're just looking up at the sky and you just get lost and transfixed looking up at this crazy, the heavens above.
Yeah.
And just kind of continue my point, this is because this is like a whole conversation just for these 2 pages. Hachi then kind of talks about what if the sun never comes back, and then Sally responds well, Hachi's having a very internal, a very thoughtful moment, and then Sally's just being very practical and be like, "What are you talking about? That's impossible. God created life with exacting precision. Morning comes once every 24 hours with a margin of error based on the time of year." And then Hachi kind of is silent and then says, "Only on Earth." And I think what this kind of builds upon is this, Sally is kind of representing the very homocentric feeling that humans kind of have towards the universe. It's like, it's very easy just to be absorbed in your own life, in your own busy body things to do. You got to go to work, so you use the light to obscure the heavens above. And she's focused on this. And it's also like, if you hear lots of people in, like, say, theological arguments or in philosophy, they'll use the arguments of teleological arguments, is like God exists because there feels like there is a natural purpose in this universe for life and humans to exist. It feels like the earth is created for us to exist because of all these precise measurements, like look how precise your eyeball is, or the gravitational constant. Lots of these kind of arguments for it, like the watchmaker's analogy. They're very, very common, like, arguments for the existence of God. And Sally's kind of making this thing, and I think Sally's actually a Christian because she's wearing a cross later on. So she's kind of she's using this almost, but a common criticism of these arguments. And this isn't like saying that, like, I'm not going to do like the atheist Thorfinn meme, well, Hachi's an atheist or whatever kind of meme. Yeah. But it's more like the problem some people, like, I forget the philosopher who reputes the watchmaker's argument, but I know Richard Dawkins talks about this because he wrote a book called The Blind Watchmaker. It's like it's almost like a survivorship bias. You are assuming the universe is created for you, and not that you are a product of the universe, so you're built to fit it. Not that the universe is built so that it can have you in it. You got like the order the wrong way around. And this is kind of what Hachi's kind of putting here, and I think by the end of this chapter, during this whole arc, Hachi's trying to deal with this depressing nihilism and just constant, like, burden of the infinite beyond him, and he is struck and doesn't know how to do it. And he doesn't know how to process normal everyday life and be self-centered again because he's overwhelmed by the infinity. And I think this is like Anyway, this is just a beautiful way to start off. And like this is classic Planetes. I'm not saying it's classic Yukimura, because I don't think it's as much, but it's like this, like, where he's so focused on his themes and what he's saying that he like all the pacing and like the plot and the characterization all facilitates it. And he starts the volume off with this nugget that you're a bit confused by. And you're like, I'm not sure where we're going with this. And then he'll just unpack it as we go through this volume, which I think is really quite beautiful in a way, and very Planetes. Like, it's happened every single volume we've read, I felt like, where we're like, I don't know what he's saying here, but this is what he's saying here whenever you read it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So sorry for that long
No, that was brilliant. You pretty much, I was eager to see if we had any different interpretations, but we're pretty much on the ball there. I was just pretty much thinking the same exact thing, like, the sun leaving, it's obscuring what's important. You're losing sight of that natural beauty because you feel obligated to something, and that's what Hachi was last volume. And then this transitions, when he asks what if the sun never comes back, this transitions us into his kind of main conflict of this volume, which is just the vastness of it and the fear that he gets of just trying to comprehend that and what he will be leaving behind. And he's kind of gone from this like romanticization of like the being alone in space and like dying alone in space or whatever, and now he's worried, like, will I come back because of just the vastness of it all.
Continue.
Oh, thank you. And then like with the sun coming back, I really like that kind of just analogy and it's kind of asking like, will we, if the sun never comes back, do we just like allow ourselves to obscure the night sky forever? Will we lose sight of that beauty permanently? Will we realize then how much more important that natural beauty is? And I think that's kind of what he's thinking about. It's the, if Hachi's the sun, if he can never come back, or maybe even like, is Tanabe the sun? I feel like there's a lot of interpretations, at least there, of like, who is the son in this scenario? Who's the one? Like, Hachi is the one leaving, but is he the one worried about, having his vision obscured and missing what's important, which really is, like, Tanabe represents all of those things that are important to him, his family, his friends, So, he's just scared of all of that, just compounded with the vastness of space and just thinking about how far he's going. But he doesn't quite understand why yet.
Yeah, and he's really trying to deal with, like, we talked about this last time, he had what would seem like some sort of ego death in
yes.
that. And this seems like a pretty natural building upon that, where instead of being so self-centered and so focused on what he wants to do, he has now been so, like, blown out of proportion of how insignificant he is, and it's crushing. And he's in some ways almost realized that his friends are really important, but he still needs to get there. And I wonder if the next volume will have further clarifications on that. But this volume does kind of really push on that, like how important friendships are and small things are to ground you in this sea of life that you're trying to find yourself in. And I think what's so beautiful about this, and I think, is that Yukimura as a person, as an author, all I can tell from, which I don't know him personally, of course, is that he's a very, very thoughtful individual, incredibly thoughtful individual. And when he's writing this, he's got so much stuff to think about. He's going through a life of immense change. I can't help but feel like I relate to him, and I'll probably end up relating to him more and more as I continue through life, particularly this stage of my life as I'm, just ended university and kind of getting to grips with my new job and finding a place to really mark myself out as an individual. Like, he kind of talks about that, and then it's like this transition into, like, as we'll see later on, like, love. And what does that mean? Something romantic. And I feel like this is something that, like, Yukimura is very much writing about him.
Yeah.
With his wife, just for lack of better terms.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so that's, like, really important to him.
One thing with the ego death of Hachi, it kind of, and like what we were exploring in this volume, it kind of highlights one of the things I love most about Yukimura and the way he writes stories. It's that when these big realizations, these big changes happen for characters, it's not the end, and he likes to explore the fallout of it. He likes to explore what comes after. And, like, that's what Vinland Saga is all about. Like, you feel like most series where they're kind of anti-revenge, like, when, like, the character realizes at the end that there's something more important than revenge isn't good or whatever, and then it's done. But Vinland Saga is all about, let's explore what life is like after I've sworn it away. And that's why I like this with Hachi as well. It's the realization he has it in the middle of the whole story, and now following up on that, he is dealing with the consequences of what he's realized. And that's what I just love about Yukimura and the way he writes. It's like that very real thing of, like, it doesn't end when you've learned the lesson. There's still a lot you have to go through to live with it.
Yeah, and it's like a continual nuance built upon the characters. I mean, I think the best example of this in Vinland Saga is Thorfinn. He goes through a dramatic reformation of his character, but he still has to constantly tweak, improve, get better, and clarify where his position is. It's not like a common misconception. I mean, I've said this so many times before, but I'll say it again, is that, Thorfinn, his development's in farmland, and that's it. And I'm like, no, his development continues. He continues to be pushed. He continues changes, but he may not have
Yeah.
a complete change in personality like we've seen before. He's tweaking, he's changing, he's, there's an extra nuance added to his character which helps flesh it out, and I think that's what Yukimura is doing with Hachi for sure. And I think here it's a bit. I didn't quite realize this beforehand, like how important Hachi is. I mean, like we talked about this before, but it feels like Yuri's going to be the main character of this whole thing or whatever, But it's really transitioned to like, you're like, oh wait, we're going really through Hachi's change in life, and Yukimura's probably, I'd assume, is really being like, this is me, this is how I'm changing, and this is how some thoughts and putting his experience of life and this great deal of change into Hutch as a character to kind of crystallize it in a way. And yes, it's very, very, it's so interesting. And yeah, it's really raw in a sense. It's like, I feel like lots of pieces, like I'm never like fully sucked into the world of Planet S, partly because maybe we're only really reading like a little bit at a time. But I think that's maybe in one sense of it, but I also think that's a good thing because it helps us reflect and actually really dig into it, while like in other times we wouldn't. But other times it's because the plot's so fast, we don't spend much time just hanging around with characters. Like everything is so efficiently written that you can quite clearly feel like, oh, this is a piece that's written by an author. You're not getting lost in it. But that's almost the rawness from it that makes me like it even more in a way. Like as a contrast to other things where you're like, wow, this is like really Yukimura grappling with these things, and it's really cool to see him do that. And not just like, oh, it's a really cool story, I guess.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, well, I thought we would drag out that intro, and we did exactly that. A lot to say.
Only 4 pages.
So, yeah, I guess getting into the chapter proper, we kind of start getting a introduction a bit more into like the other characters here, and like the
Sally's a new
rest
character,
of, like,
which
the
I
group.
think very interesting.
Sally is brand new, and I quite like Sally. I like a lot about Sally. There's definitely more to talk about as we get further with her.
She's British, and in the first 3 pages, they're above the British English Channel, so in between France and
I didn't even
the UK.
notice that.
So you can see London. The biggest star they're looking down at is where London is. So that's kind of cool. I do think is interesting. Once again, we get a Christian character, it would seem, which I think is interesting. I don't know. I just really wonder what Yukimura's background is with Christianity, because it comes up in Vinland Saga, and it's not something that you'd probably be culturally very exposed to in Japan. I'd assume. I mean, maybe I'm incorrect, because I know America after the Second World had a big influence, but yeah, I mean, who knows? But yeah,
I'm definitely very interested in the way Yukimura like embraces multiculturalism, and we saw this a lot in I think every volume so far. It just kind of continues here with the introduction of the crew for the mission, because it's a very diverse cast. Unfortunately, we only really we get some other names, I think, but we only really get to know Sally in this volume. So I imagine the next volume will be a bit.
I think it'd be a bit more plot heavy. This is what I feel. I feel like
that too.
I do think, because I read a little bit of the blurb, and it kind of, all the stuff it touched on was stuff I hadn't read, and I've already read 5 chapters of this new volume. So I would hope that it feels interesting that way. One thing I will say about Sally, and the last thing before we go on,
sure.
Some of her writing in dialogue is well translated. Some of it's not. In her Britishisms, so she'll say the word blimey, which I'm like, fair enough, that's good, English approved, British approved. Then other times she uses the word jerk off. I'm like, that's the most American thing I could ever hear, and why is it coming out of a Brit's mouth? Like in the UK we don't use the term
wanker.
Jerk. We call them a wanker, a prick, a tosser. You got so many ways of calling someone something where they're ejaculating in some way or masturbating in some way, which is what jerk off is, right? And it's just one of those things where you're like, This could have been translated slightly differently, but at the same time, it's a niche manga. Probably got translated like, I don't know, like 15 years ago. You know, it's not as commonly known or whatever. Like Blimey would be what you know if you were 15 years ago and you're translating something. So hey, I'm not gonna get mad about it because it's just
Jerk off is definitely more of like my stomping grounds, New York Italian kind of area.
Yeah.
I did notice her say "blimey" though, and I did think it was kind of funny that they're just giving her these little.
I was like, that's good stuff.
That's what they made Jarkey making a character. That's crazy. Made a character just for him.
Yeah, just for me. I'm so happy.
Just for you to pick apart.
Yeah.
But as we get these kind of these character introductions, we kind of transition into well, I mean, you can notice leading up to this that Hachi looks very kind of like, he looks sickly. He looks like he's lost weight. His like face is kind of lost kind of his like roundness, and he seems just kind of off mentally. And then we kind of,
I think is the term.
Yes, that would be the right word. And we come into this flashback scene with the cat in the evening, and the cat in the evening is so interesting to me, and I had to do a lot of thinking to really think about what this is about, what it really means, because this is probably, I think, so far one of the more harder to put together pieces of like symbolism. Yeah, very abstract. That's a perfect way to put it.
And I mean, this is something I kind of love about there's a moment later on where just things kind of come out of nowhere in a weird, wacky way and in the best way possible, which I really enjoyed. And this cat just like being half dead, scraping along the ground. You're like, what is going on here? Like, I'm so confused. And I'll be honest, I do hope you have a good explanation, because I know we have a black cat here, and that black cat returns later, but then Hachi only sees this black cat once, and then he has a white cat later, and then I'm just like, hold on, what is going on with this? Like the yin yang, is that what we're thinking? Or,
something like that. But what's so interesting to me about the cat, it made me kind of realize as I finished the volume how much Vinland Saga, Planet Test seems to be written around volumes. Like Vinland Saga, like chapters are kind of put in the volumes, and that's about it. It's not really written with that structure, but it feels like every single volume so far has just been a solid like start, middle, end. With
like a mini arc in a way. Like
it's like the arcs are the volumes, and I guess that just goes to like, you know, the size of this story. It's a much smaller story. So it makes sense, I guess, but it feels like it was put together in a volume structure, and most like long-running manga just don't feel like that. So I found that to be really interesting, and the cat sort of ties this whole volume together. Basically, it's the start, middle, and the end. So that's why I really want to talk about the cat and understand the cat. So I wrote so many notes on this cat to try to really understand it.
Okay, this is really cool. I like this a lot. Okay, I'm glad you did so.
Obviously, like, death is a very important aspect of the cat, and I think we're to presume that this scene is a flashback. It goes to like the dark, and usually when I guess the pages aren't black. Usually when a manga does flashbacks, they like to do like the black pages, but the transition into darkness usually means a sort of flashback-ish kind of thing.
Yeah, and
I assume this isn't in his head,
Hachi looks basically a lot more well here. He looks...
Yeah, true. I guess I'm not putting it the right way. I'm not saying that this is something that's happening kind of recently. I'm more saying, like, is this something he's just picturing? Is this a, like, in his head, or is this a memory? I'm definitely leaning more on memory.
I think it is a memory from probably almost soon after he fell off the cliff, because I think that's the same jacket that he had over his Vikings, you know, the Vikings jacket he had.
Oh, yeah.
So I just picked up on that now. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, like I feel like it's just after he's had the ego death, and this is
that would make a lot of sense.
The beginning of his ego death. Okay, it's not
that's
the same
a perfect
jacket,
time.
I think that makes sense though. Still.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually. It's right if it's right after the sploosh. The sploosh. Yeah, this is a perfect time for him to have something jolt him and spark this. So if this is right after that, that would make sense. If it's when he was younger, it doesn't really It still fits. It still fits
Yeah.
fine. So it's not a big deal. But yeah, I definitely think this is a real thing and not, something he's imagining. But obviously he's imagining the cat being there in the conference room. But yeah. So we had this cat, and it looks like it was in some kind of accident. I assume hit by a car, based on the cars we see in the scene, and the cat's essentially just kind of dragging itself into the darkness, and it's like dragging with a trail of blood. It's a very kind of brutal thing, but the cat looks directly at Hachi and just keeps going. And immediately I think of it's like a futility kind of thing, dragging yourself on and on, even though you're bleeding out. It's just like a sad struggle to your own death. And that's what makes me think this is what the cat means to Hachi, is this personification of death. If you come from the angle of maybe if this is Hachi younger, but he does look a bit more right after the ego death, like you said. But so I was thinking of it in almost a way of this is maybe an earlier time where this is one of Hachi's first real brushes with death. But if this is after the ego death kind of scene, then obviously that wouldn't be the case. He saw the body in space. He's had plenty to understand about death. He saw the guy in the moon who walked out and let himself die. So obviously, if it takes place then, that point is kind of moot. But it still seems that this is related to death, and it is sort of a very core thing to him.
Yeah.
I guess it's more about how he views death now. With his new look on it, this is what is kind of the foundation of it.
Yeah. Okay, so only now am I doing... I feel like I'm maybe piecing together. I like your point about death. I feel like it's almost a representation of maybe a Hachi, what will happen with him as he... it's like a slow crawl towards death, in a way, as his cat is withering away. And this is what happens to Hachi throughout this arc, is that he isn't trying to kill himself, but he's not really trying to keep himself alive either. It's this apathy towards life. And that's what the cat kind of feels like. But then there's this great shot. I mean, I love this whole scene. It's just, there's no talking. Hachi's just, the amount of time it gives panels of him getting stuff out of the vending machine and all that. And then it has this beautiful shot of the cat walking into the woods, surrounded by junk, which is, I think, interesting, with the moon above him. And then Hachi looks up at the moon and zooms closer and closer to the moon. And it feels almost like, there's something, I feel like the junk has something to do with Hachi's being a rubbish collector with the moon in the background. I don't know. I feel like there's something there that he's trying to get at, and but it also creates Hachi's gaze to then look at the moon and there's the vastness of space, but then it zooms towards the moon, which then doesn't quite give my
see the moon base there, can you?
I think that's the moon
on
base.
The left.
Yeah, it's something human mechanical in a way.
Yeah.
Anyway. But it's a weird thing. I'm not sure, and I think, and it's more weird because he then, I guess he does talk about it later, right? The cat looked at me. That's right. It was that cat. No, he was just a clue. There's something more than, maybe it's it's just the fact that the cat's half dying and stuff. That's
I think where this really started to click for me was when Tanabe had a very similar cat.
Yeah, for sure.
And we see what happens to that cat, and we realize this is both of their fears. Tanabe's cat walked off and abandoned the family, walked off to the storm. And Tanabe is afraid of leaving her family behind. She doesn't write her will, but obviously this is getting pretty far ahead. But she is afraid of... if she goes out and doesn't come back, how that will hurt her family. And then Hachi sees this cat just dragging itself out, and he feels like he's on his way to that inevitable death too. So they're both seeing their kind of fear in the cat. So that's what came to me, and that's what I guess I should have probably saved that a bit, but that was kind of almost my ultimate conclusion.
Yeah, I think this is important because the cat we're gonna dawdle on this bit, and then maybe we should just go piece by piece. But that's a good start on it, and then we can dig into it maybe a little bit later.
Yeah, when we see the pieces come into play as we go forward. Yeah.
And so we kind of talk here. We go into introduce Von Braun. It's just what's this guy's name? I forget.
Locksmith.
Yes. Yeah. So he's talking about they're doing a bit of a press conference and all this stuff. They got NASA, Technora, and a few other things there. But people ask Hachi a question, and Hachi's mind is just not focused on the mission and kind of blank. And I thought it was kind of cool. There's a vagabond reference because one of the books he's reading is
I love that little scene too. Yeah.
And it's like he just feels lost. And then I love the contrast with his dad, where like his dad's literally sleeping, and then there's like this feeling like, oh, these guys are just useless idiots. And then we get a nice like contrast. You get like a lot of different people around the world. Yeah, I
love this page so much. It's just like very Yukimura, just like all these people who are so different, and Yukimura just likes to explore that, and it's so cool. You don't see that in manga that much, like at least like more historical or like more based in reality kind of manga. Usually they're very focused on either Japan or some other place, but still very focused on that one place. But Yukimura always seems to like the multiculturalism, and I just love this page because of that.
Yeah,
the cat, man, the cat brings me back in.
Such interesting imagery. And then they kind of Sam's being very good with the PR, and she's very much like she's very much in the know. She's being very professional, and being very good at that PR, and giving them. But then like Hachi just kind of like he literally has a brush with death in a way.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, man. Let's go.
I just picked it up from what you were saying before. Like I was like, I guess the cat touches him and he just kind of falls over.
It's so funny that you said exactly that. I was like gearing up to say it when you have a stopping point.
I stole your thunder,
That's so
man.
Funny. Read my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, he faints. And when we see him wake up later, he's like in his true Hachi stubborn fashion, he refuses to see a doctor.
Yeah. He's got his hands in the pocket. This is like the most Hachi he's looked this whole
I love that little panel of him. Yeah. He's just like, I'm alright. And he's just very clearly not. But so he's there's very clearly something wrong, and he's like recommended to maybe go back to Earth, but he just doesn't see anything to do there. So again, it's like that kind of losing sight again of what's important. And I mean that seems to be consistent throughout every volume. And he comes to a solution to relax. I think Sally kind of inspires him. She talks about going by the river Thames or Thames.
Thames. Yeah, we don't pronounce the th. So it's one of the, it's like Thomas. You don't say Thomas.
Okay.
And that's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
This is
when I realized where she's from, though.
Yeah, this is the main river in London.
Yep.
And I'll be honest. In 2077, the UK must be doing something bad if you can have a picnic along the River Thames and not get disturbed by tourists. And then not to look even worse than what he does. We've got my friend's got a drink that he likes to make, which is basically a Jaeger bomb of sorts, and we call it mud water straight from the River Thames because it just looks like just disgusting. Like the River Thames the water in it is not clean.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's. Yeah, it's nice to see them have some cute banter, and I mean, I don't know. I just really like Sally. She is mother.
I do quite like her,
and it's nice to, I mean, and she's just like really. She feels really, really responsible for Hachi, which I think is very interesting. And she has a interesting character moment later, which we'll get to. But,
we'll get to that.
So they're kind of out in space, and they're talking about Hachi just almost wants to. I don't know why. I think he just wants to chill in space for a little bit. Is this what he wants to do?
Yeah, I guess he sees it as you know how with the Nana chapter or whatever, like, this is my ocean kind of thing. Like, this is like sitting by the river for him, you know, this is him taking his time to think.
He just wants to meditate in a way, meditate in the voids, which I mean, that would be some insane place to meditate. Like, if you were in the middle of space in your suit, you could,
That's for sure.
It's like that cryogenic chamber, or, you know, the sensory deprivation chambers that people go into and stuff. So that'd be very crazy. But yeah.
So yeah, Hachi he's just kind of out there. I like this little moment where he just like speaks in English to her when she's leaving. He's like, "Sure, mom." That's pretty funny.
Well, though, okay, and this is another small nitpick. All right, if it's
Sure.
English, if it's British English, the mum would be spelt with a U, not an O.
True.
Very
true.
Translator's bad. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, like, but then again, you know, they're in international places, so American English is probably assumed. So at the same time, I guess we can do that. And the next page, I think there's so many great pages in this, but I love this page of Hachi just sitting in the nothingness.
Page. Yeah.
With his helmet faded out.
I do quite like that.
It is so beautiful. Yeah. And then we are met with Cats number 2.
Cat. So this is so weird to me. I guess it is like I didn't even think about the yin yang. I don't know why I didn't think about it. It's the most obvious thing ever.
Yeah, so black and white.
The black and the white.
In it, bro.
But here we are, and so maybe, I don't know. Is this like the cat for life? I don't know. It definitely does try to talk to him. You know what's really interesting about this? It feels like a more positive version of like the weird alter ego Hachi that we had in the last 2 volumes. That kind of like, he's usually like making good points, but usually in a way that's kind of a bit aggressive. But this feels like a bit more like kind of like some omnipotent kind of thing. But what's so interesting is that it still kind of is Hachi. I like how when I first read this, I kind of expected that the dialogue that's outside of the bubbles to be the cat. So like this telepathy kind of thing talking into his head. But the one that actually has the dialogue bubbles is the cat, which is I found that
super
to be kind
trippy,
of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, but I had to read it like 5 times to be like, who's saying what?
Yes,
because this is the weird thing. Is like it says, it's like the cat's like, "Who are you?" And then Hachi replies with something like weirdly abstract. It's like, "I'm you, and I'm you. I'm everything. I'm nothing. I'm living death. I exist as a contradiction. I question, and I am my own answer." And it's like, and maybe it's like, I mean, maybe it's just a point of insane meditation for Hachi.
Yeah.
You know, he's out there for, as we find out, 7 days. And it's like, you know, and the cat's like, "You say so much, yet nothing at all. Funny that. Why are you
I love
here?"
that line.
You know, it's like, I end up here whenever I think about space. I see. So it's almost like Hachi's so inside his own mind that he's like insanely deep in a convoluted and contradictory way.
Yeah.
And that's why it can make no sense. It's like, please tell me this is the end. And then it's just, it can be if you wanted to end, but also where did it start? I don't know. Okay, perhaps there's a circle, you know, no beginning or end. Like, it's just kind of, like, it feels almost like a nonsense conversation, but not quite.
Yeah, I almost wondered, like, how much of this is intended to be nonsense. Because this was a hard one. Like, when I read this, I was lingering on it for so long, because I genuinely, like, was trying very hard to understand what it's getting at. One thing about before like the conversation with the cat starts, Hachi says something. This is what made me think that memory was from much longer ago and it wasn't a recent thing, because he said like he's been lurking this whole time or something like that. So that's what made me think this is like a very younger, much younger Hachi, probably before going up into space. But would he have thought about the cat hard in the moment?
I think what you said earlier, makes more sense. I think it's just another version of his alter ego. So instead of his alter ego being him viewing himself. Now it's like these cats that kind of like leave an impression on him. And and it's like the cat says, "You are human. You are Hachi. You love Tanabe. These truths will give you strength.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for you to come to me when you've still so much yet to live, why rush it? I'll come get you someday. Go home for now." And I mean, this actually implies something else, which I just realized. Yeah, I mean, this cat is maybe just death. You know, he's conversing with death.
Yes.
It's like, you have so much more to live for. I will come back to get you when your time's here to come. Don't, like, maybe it's like
definitely
a conversation with nihilistic depression, maybe a bit of suicidal thoughts in there as well, where it's like, we don't need to think, you know, we don't really need to talk yet. There's not much point, but I've been in the background. So maybe there's something like that. It's like...
That's why I think Hachi just views death as the cat, because of that experience of seeing the cat, and they're just kind of linked.
And yeah, true.
And I think Hachi just kind of sees himself as like the cat bleeding out and dragging itself away to this inevitable death. And like you said, the cat refuses Hachi and it sends him off because he has so much to live for. Why rush it? And when the cat says to go home for now, Hachi asks where and how he can get there. So he, again, you know, forgetting where home is, planets, it's so good. This just seems to be the theme of, like, remembering where your home is and what does home even mean, and taking care of your home. And Hachi is at a state right now where he just doesn't know what home is. He doesn't know how to get there because it all feels so far away. Because of that fear of, like, the distance. Like, everything seems so much farther when you're worried about distance. But the cat says, if you can see the darkness, you can, by contrast, see the light. And obviously this plays on the contrast between the two cats. Like, you had the black cat and the white cat. If you could see the dark black cat that represents, like, your inevitable demise, and the white cat that seems to be, you know, encouraging you to keep going. These are the two cats. And it, more importantly, says that Hachi can understand what he needs and what home is by looking at, I think, what he feels like he's afraid of. By acknowledging that fear, looking at the darkness, he can then see, what do I need to do to move forward? What do I need to find? Where am I looking? And that's how I really interpreted this. This is, Hachi needs to kind of embrace that problem. He needs to look right at it and understand it before he can find himself and what he needs to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
But, yeah, like you said, Hachi was out there for 7 days. Sally realizes he's been gone this long, and she goes out to get him. And he's just kind of, like, very out of it still. And obviously this conversation with the cat was not a solution or anything. He's still very much in the thick of this problem. And he's just so nonchalant about it. And I like this panel of his eyes where Sally's looking at him and he's just kind of staring blankly. It's very much, you know, Yukimura, Vinland Saga kind of thing.
Yeah,
the eyes showing you, like, they're somewhere else. They're somewhere not here. You know, they're not in the same kind of plane of thinking as you. But it's a much more negative way of it. Like in Vinland Saga, it's very much like reaching enlightenment and, like, understanding that, like, when you look at people who are kind of still lost to it, you feel a sort of, like, pity, I guess. But here it's very much the opposite, where Hachi is so lost that he has this just kind of stare that is sort of like very off-putting to Sally.
Yeah, and even the next page, like, he says, time flies, huh? And it's just like slight smile, which to me feels very Thor's-esque in a way. And it's almost terrifying, like his attitude towards his own life. And I actually, maybe before that, I did quite like, and it's interesting. I only noticed this my second time, but yeah, like when Sally's in the in like the space station or whatever, like
The cross.
yeah, like her cross is like super prevalent in every single panel. Like she's like fiddling it with one, and then she does like this amen gesture, which I mean I've never seen a Christian do an amen gesture like that, but hey you know. But like anyway, I thought I was just very stunned by like the fact that it would be in like something like that, like even someone like Gudrid, who historically or like Leaf is super well known for being, you know, Christians historically. It's not something that Yukimura is focused on, and maybe something that he's found he wanted to focus on less. You know, like Christianity is more in the early parts of Vinland Saga, particularly like with Willibald and Knut. But it's just something like interesting that he's been more specific with it this time. I don't think it's as specific later on. But yeah, anyway, it's just another one of those things that I do like Sally, like being super, well, it's a bit weird, like she hasn't really thought about him for 7 days, but at the same time,
yeah, I did think it was kind of weird that like, you know, he said he'd be like, what, 2 days without food? I guess it's because they were all on break, so she assumed he was just kind of back already.
True, like maybe she was away and then she came back and all that stuff, so.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone thought he was just still on his break, just not, you know, sitting on the moon. But yeah, so we kind of end the chapter with Sally just kind of like nonchalantly, she says like, let's head back, and Hachi's just kind of now very just kind of lost, and he's saying like, back where, how, and he's very much thinking about this idea of like not knowing where home is, because like the cat told him go home, and he just doesn't know where he's going. With that kind of aimlessness. And yeah, that kind of ends chapter 12. Did you have any other points about it you wanted to discuss?
No, I feel like we'll probably go through the other ones a little faster, because like with these volumes, like a lot of stuff is put in our minds initially with the first chapter, and we'll talk a lot about them. Like at least most of my notes I've written are all for this chapter, and then as we go through, it'll just be more commenting on the play-by-play and then linking again back into
exactly. Yeah, that's usually how my notes were going too. I just kind of start like I've kind of spoken my piece a lot of the earlier ones, because it's really hard when you have like these key symbolism that's introduced in the first chapter and you want to talk about it. The cat, you have to talk about it, and you know you have to kind of go ahead a little bit in order to understand now and really do this moment justice. But yeah, continuing to chapter 13, we get this kind of backstory for Tanabe. And
I love the parents so much.
This. I love the parents so much. I just absolutely adore this. So Tanabe was found on her adoptive parents' doorstep, accompanied by a black cat, which just immediately I was like, oh no, what's happening when I saw that cat. But it looks so much like the one from Hachi's past, but of course, like, different cat. And so she has her adoptive mother, Yukari, and she's a teacher. And her adoptive father, Koji, works on the windmills in this little town. And I just love the vibe of this little town, especially the chapter kind of cover page with the double spread. I absolutely love that page.
But then this cat.
Yeah.
So, you know, so they find her, like, you know, it kind of starts off with the dad singing about his time, you know, like, because it is revealed later that he used to be a rock star, so he's singing the song they used to stuff, and he always says, like, oh, that's really rock and roll, which I kind of like. It's like a little dad
I love this
thing.
guy. Yeah.
And then there's also cute stuff, like the mum's an elementary school teacher, so she talks to a lot of the kids. I love this little page of them holding the bag together between them. And,
yeah, that is really cute.
But anyway, interesting. Later on, like they instantly like pick up this baby and adopt it, and then there's like the square text box, which is like a narrator speaking. That's what it generally means, and it says, yes, they're naturals, and in the spring of whatever. And so it could be just a generic narrator, but I also kind of think, well, is it the cat speaking? Because it's like the cat's in the picture. Like, and he's like observing it all, and then he's shown to be back with Tanabe and like
Yeah, interesting. I didn't even think about that. This makes me want to watch the anime adaptation and see
Yeah.
like what voice do they even use. I just read this in Thor's voice because he's the narrator. His voice is used as the narrator in the Vinland Saga adaptation.
true.
So I wonder if they go a similar route where they just take a character who's kind of central. Maybe Yuri. Maybe Yuri's the narrator or something.
Yeah, maybe that would make sense. Yeah, and then you know, as you go on, which is quite cool. Like her existence is a complete mystery, but
Yeah.
But then like
Do you think
she's
that'll
working
get
on the
explored?
spaceships, the Toy Box 2, and she's
Yeah.
singing the same song, kind of like her dad, who's repairing windmills. She's repairing a
Yeah.
ship. You know, it's like a cool little
Oh,
thing.
that's a nice little parallel. I didn't think about they're both like repairing stuff. They're both working and
Yeah.
stuff. That's cute.
And then there's a cat. She stowed away a cat.
Another cat, another different cat. So I got
Just
3
different
black
cat.
cats.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my god.
yeah.
But there, real quick about them saying like her past is a mystery. Do you think this is something that'll actually get explored, or do you think it's just
I
kind of,
was
like
when I first read it,
matter
I
of
was
fact, move
so
on?
sure that like she'll turn out to be an alien of some sort.
Yeah, I was sort of worried that it was going in that direction. I really don't think I would like that. I don't know. That's the thing with this last volume. It really could. Once
can
they
do
get
anything.
out there, they could go anywhere.
The manga's a little wacky, so I'm pretty.
It
open
is
to most
wacky.
things.
Yeah.
Um,
And we do have that little weird alien thing that Hachi sees in the dream and stuff, which is really funny.
yeah, that was.
That's
so
what makes me
funny.
wonder, is that the direction they're going to go? Like,
Yeah,
when they go
it's-
out there,
it's-
will
it's-
there be life?
Is like he
Oh,
was
man.
an alien, but then like Tanabe is like he replaces it with Tanabe as he thinks about her earlier or something. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's kind of
I think what I thought of when they had, like, this mystery pass, if there was any big deal there, what made me think was Lunarian. How they introduced Nono, or what's her name? Nana or Nono? I forget now. I think it's Nono.
No.
They introduced her to introduce the idea of Lunarians, and it may have just been as a way of making this character. Just she is a
Yeah.
representation of that idea. But yeah, if there's any mystery past that's going to be brought up in the future, that's what my money would be on. But I kind of think it's just like a matter of fact, just stating that it's a mystery and we're gonna move on.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think in some ways Nono was probably meant to be Tanabe, but then Yukimura realized, oh, this person is like way too young to be a love interest, and then he had to
Yeah.
like, not do it in the
I
end.
think
Like,
yeah,
it
I
felt
don't
like a
think
bit
he
of
realized he
lack of
wanted to write
planning.
about love yet.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, this is a little bit of lack of planning on Yukimura's part because it's first manga and all this stuff, right? But I think that's pretty interesting. To think
Yeah,
about,
there's still
like-
something to be said though about how well she's implemented either way. You
Yes,
know, even
true,
if like
for sure.
even if it was a sort of like lack of planning in some sense, I do think her kind of standalone little story there it still hits.
Oh,
and it still
yeah,
works.
I'm so happy. Like, yeah, if she was a Lunarian, she wouldn't have had that backstory, and I think this backstory is really, really sweet and great. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
But sorry, you were saying something.
I don't think I was saying anything extra actually.
Oh,
I think
cool.
I
Okay.
finished.
Then we proceed. Yeah, so she snuck the cat on the ship. But there's one thing with her singing. The lyrics she says something like, "Why is the thing you're looking for so hard to find? And when you stop looking for it, it's right before your eyes." And you know, I feel like it's kind of speaking onto the what Hachi's going through, of like he has to kind of he's looking for home. He's trying to find this, and he just doesn't understand it. And by sort of taking a step back, not looking for it and looking at his fear and his problems, that's he'll realize right before his eyes what's really important, and it's Tanabe, it's family.
Yeah, and actually looking at what the dad, because I didn't actually pay too much attention until now, but like looking at what the dad is saying, he says, "We don't need to figure it out. It's okay. Leave it uncertain. We are so far alive." And it's
I should have
like,
gone back.
I think this is pretty important for like what Tanabe's arc is and what Hachi's arc is like, you know, we don't have to have. I think this is what Yukimura probably thinks, because like he's written in Vinland Saga volumes, just like people ask him what's the meaning of life, and he says, "I don't know," just straight up. And this is kind of like a point where it's like Yukimura in this part of his life, he's like, "I don't know the answers. That's okay because I'm alive and I have my wife or whatever. I have love." I have the people around me, and that's what matters. And I think what then links into more is like his approach to writing manga and drawing, because he's almost famously slow at doing it. He spends time with his family every single month. He recently went on to this Japanese YouTube channel, and
I watched that video.
Yeah, it's such a good video. It turns out his youngest son, so his third son, is a big fan of the YouTube channel, and so he brought in one of his son's drawings for them to all draw around, and and it's like a really cute moment where he's being a dad, and he's just writing about parts of his life and condensing his thoughts into it, and it's a beautiful way to really like immortalize your feelings towards something at one point in your life, which makes you cherish it quite a bit. So yeah. One thing though, I was trying to I didn't look so much on these earlier lyrics, but some of the later lyrics I was trying to focus on. I couldn't figure them out when like the dad's rock star background was given away. But anyway, we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah, when we get to that, that's an interesting one.
But anyway, Fee's getting destroyed by a cat. She's not happy. Good gag. And then it's like, I love the pictures of like the cats like floating in the background because there's like no gravity in space. Absolutely hilarious. And then it kind of brings in like, the Tanabe has had sea cucumbers and spiders. Like she's quite an animal person, which
is this something we knew about last volume?
Yes. So the sea cucumbers, yes. Like there was a little like 4-page panel between the thing where it's like, oh, this is her sea cucumbers, and it's like a little gag thing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it was there. Yeah. I thought it was weird. It's just like this little thing.
Yeah.
It almost feels like when you read JoJo's, Araki likes to just drop these random like
little fact
hyper interests that a character will have.
Yeah.
Just like character in like part 8 who's just like obsessed with Beatles. It's just like a thing he does.
Yeah.
And I kind of read it in that way. But yeah, now that you mentioned it, I do remember it being brought up last volume.
But yeah, then she's like, oh, I returned to the university because, the study was over. And I was just babysitting. But now all I have are goldfish. Like, and it's just like a funny guess. Like, wait, you have goldfish? Anyway, it's interesting. Like, I don't know how that would work in space to get goldfish in a tank. But anyway, you have the classic Yuri, saying something like
I love Yuri.
He's just accepting of it. He's like, yeah, it's probably not that big of a deal. And then Fee's like, you're crazy, man. And then he explains himself, and then Fee's like, oh no, that makes sense. So it's quite funny. And then it has this weird gag of the cat knowing how to pee in a human toilet, which is pretty funny.
I don't think it was learning. I think it was showing this is like a trained space cat.
Yeah, it's a trained space cat. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so like this cat was like, they mentioned it earlier that this cat was like a pet on another ship.
Yeah.
That got into a debris accident where the owner died. So Tanabe kind of, they were going to like put it down. So Tanabe took it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's an interesting little Fee fact is like her husband is a big pushover and just accepts any cats. So she's not at home and she comes home probably from space and it's just her house is a zoo and she probably hates it. And so like, anyway, it's just one of those fun little like, small character moments, which is nice.
But building off of that on the panel right after, I love what she says here. She just kind of has a moment of like softness where she says like creatures like that, they don't belong this far out in space. And like this last volume had talked about so much about how people don't belong in space and how we create these things to allow us to be up there in an environment that just doesn't welcome us, it doesn't love us. Mm-hmm. And like, why does the cat not belong up there but we do is a question that came to my mind immediately. Is it because we understand what we're getting into when we go up into space, and do we really understand what we're getting into when we go up into space? I just thought that was a little interesting moment of her, and I really wish we explored Fee more. I wish we had more time for her and Yuri. Like Yuri had a lot of great moments, but I feel like Fee has a lot like she could offer because she is a pretty wise person. I think
all she needs is like another chapter or two.
Yeah,
I think she'll be from the blurb I read. I think she will be in the later ones, and if it's a bit more plot focused, we can get a bit more Fee in there.
Yeah, I did read the blurb as well, and I stopped reading it after I realized what I was reading. Yeah, but it did say something about Fee and her family and something like that. So I'm definitely very eager to see what is done with her, and I want I want Yukimura to show me that these characters are still important, and that I shouldn't just be forgetting them. I genuinely really hope they join the mission, but at the same time, it seems that one of the more important aspects of Hachi going on this mission is that he's leaving them behind. So, can't have it both ways, I guess.
Yeah.
But what else? So yeah, with this cat, before we get back into Tanabe's past, I do think this kind of shows something about Tanabe, how like cats are of equal significance to her, like with Hachi, like I had mentioned earlier, and the way she views them, she doesn't really correlate them with that like death as much. You know, obviously, this is related to death, and we'll see later that her fears with the cat do relate to death. But it does seem more about protection and love. I think it's more focused on that aspect of it, and love being lost, I guess, rather than death itself, which Hachi is a bit more focused on. And yeah, so we're introduced to this connection with the cat for her, with the cat, you know, being there when she's found by her parents, when she finds that love, and then finding this cat and protecting it from death. But
then,
we definitely get way more of that when we go back to her flashback.
Interestingly, like the next page, right, we flip over, and the first animal we see Tanabe like chronologically deal with is a hornet of some kind killing a caterpillar, which instantly reminded me of Mikasa in Attack on Titan, where before she, I mean, you know, you watched Attack on Titan, right? So she is watching. So what is that? What is that thing called? So it's one of the famous the ferocious five, fearsome five in Kung Fu Panda. Praying mantis. That's it.
Okay.
So the praying mantis eating a butterfly.
Oh right.
In Attack on Titan, this is where young Mikasa, before her parents get murdered. I guess spoilers for Attack on Titan. It's not really spoilers. It's early on.
Yeah, that's a pretty early one.
Yeah. So. Yeah, so she's an orphan, but like it's like this innocent child watching death with complete awe and being transfixed by it.
Yep.
And this is, I think, Tanabe is more on the nose, not on more on the nose, but more consistent with it, because we have another thing later where she looks at a bunch of crows eating something else, and she's almost about to touch the dead carcass before her mum stops her. It's interesting. Like the big thing about Tanabe is that she doesn't talk, and then you get this, you know, cute little scene with her mum talking to, you know, she's been off work, and her students and pupils are wondering where she is. And then,
exactly, the juxtaposition of these students.
And then then the students like talking, it's like, oh, your dad used to be a rock star, or your husband used to be a rock star, whatever. And then it's like this cute panel, and then it just turns to utter grit, determination, raw. Like, this may be like one of the most dirty pages I've ever seen Yukimura draw. Like this rock star one is.
It's very much how he draws kind of like action, the very like scratchy, very a lot of like very kinetic. Yeah, is the best way to put it.
Death kills stupidity. Death kills stupidity. It's me, you bastard. It's me, you bastard. There's no redemption for those who deny it, and you, and you, and you. Death is at your door, which I think means something. Death should take you. Death should take you. You know, don't look at me with that stupid gaze. With your stupid gaze, death will take you. Will take that look off your stupid face. Your stupidity will heal you when you die. Come on, stupid masses, get off your stupid asses. Come with me to Nirvana so we can hear the Buddha speak. It definitely feels like, oh, I'm 12-year-old. This is deep, you know, edgy lyrics.
Yeah,
but there is something to that. There's something to that, and I mean, Yukimura won't put it in without it, and I haven't. But now you talk about death so much. I mean, that maybe makes sense, you know, like Hachi is stupid, I guess.
Yeah, it's like this aggressive negativity. I guess I felt the same exact way when I read this. I felt like I feel like it might be trying to say something, but it feels so surface level, and maybe that's the point.
Yeah.
But one thing I do quite like about this is that you can see the tattoos on him, so you can tell that that's the dad. Yeah. That's Koji. Obviously, they mention him being a rock star before, so you'll make that connection rock either way.
Baby.
Yeah.
Sex is empty. I love that.
But one thing about let's see. Yeah, I didn't really know how to really interpret this. I mean, do you feel like you have a better reading on the real point of this besides the characterization of Koji?
I think there's something about a man being so into something crazy when he's young, something so out there, something so
that's very good.
rambunctious, and then this contrast with this almost small village life that he lives now. Like, it's so mundane, so ordinary, so not in the spotlight, just fixing windmills. That is like this family feels like this is some small town energy, which makes it really quaint and beautiful. And then like there's this like edginess to it, and then like the next page is him just chilling, smoking, and he says, "Oh, what a beautiful day, rock and roll." Like, it's like he's, you know, he talks about all this, like, you know, stupidity, death, and all this darkness, I guess, and he's got "sex is empty" on his arm, which was on his hand, you know, when he's, you know, he's got all these tattoos of his younger days, and now he's kind of like, I think he's now kind of like what Hachi is, where he's just calmed down, relaxed, and peaceful, and he's just able to take in the beauty of a normal day. And there is this like common dad thing, which I think, you know, is, you know, most like Thor's, where it's like you also have Yuri like this, where it's just like gentle masculinity of just being understanding, which is super unique, I feel like. And not unique, but I feel like super nice to watch. And it's like, I wonder where Yukimura draws that from in his personal life. Just this kind of like relaxed fatherhood, in a way, where he's just like urgent to do stuff when he needs to, but like understanding and quick to slow to anger, and just slow to judge, and, you know, just be patient, which I think is really
makes me wonder what his father was like.
Yeah, he does talk about his father in the interviews, but like he always talked about how his father never pressured him to be not to be a manga artist or something like that. Yeah. But like I don't remember anything apart from that. So it made it sound like his dad was quite relaxed. Actually, I'm gonna have a little look. Feel free to kind of keep on talking, and I'll go get the other volume from my shelf.
Yeah, I guess when it comes to fatherhood, it feels like what I've really only seen Yukimura talk about for the most part is his own experience, because I mostly read his interviews from a Vinland Saga kind of era, that kind of perspective, a bit more closer to now. So I feel like, I don't know if he had his kids at this point, if he had his family at this point.
Maybe he had one or two by the end of this, but it feels very much like
younger, but looking towards it kind of thing. So I feel like it would be a bit more about like mirroring how he was raised and the kind of father he wants to be. Maybe he wants to be a father just like his father, or a better father, or something like that. But that's the vibe I get, kind of looking towards it and basing it off his past in some way. But so I think we're on the same page that this sequence is definitely a bit more just to characterize him, but and not really have too much meaning with the lyrics outside of that. But I mean, 2 pages are dedicated to it, so I do feel like, especially with like the death stuff, death being so close, and just the anger that Hachi has said so many times that he's been feeling, it definitely does seem to at least kind of mirror that in some way. But I struggle to find any more depth within it beyond that point.
Yeah, for sure.
But we kind of get back to Yukari with Tanabe and the kids. I love this little panel of the kid waving out the bus. Is so cute. It's just a silly little like comedic thing. I like when Yukimura does these kind of like these smaller zoomed out panels that are a bit like the characters don't have as much detail, and it's just like a little gag.
Yeah.
I do think it's really cute. But with these kids, it's so interesting how he uses these kids to sort of contrast Tanabe and her timidness, distance, emotionlessness. Yeah. And I guess we see it a bit more later after this crow scene, but we see that this really gets to Yukari because she sees how all these other kids are and how they interact with her and how like energetic and vibrant they are, and she wants that from Tanabe in a sort of almost like selfish way, where she wants to feel that love from her daughter. but she's unable to get it. And so we have this scene with the crows. Tanabe, sort of like it, like you said before, it's almost like a step up from what she was looking at with the bugs, where it's on a much bigger scale. You have this murder of crows around this animal, picking at the carcass. And when I was looking at this, I was trying to see, is that a cat? I still don't quite know what the animal is. It is pretty like messed up.
Yeah, it's
but with how much cats have been this symbolism with death and all that.
It could definitely be that size for sure. I didn't think of that, but I don't think it's like the worst interpretation either. So
yeah, it's definitely hard to say. They don't really put a focus on it, so I don't think it's that important what kind of animal it is. But it is like, you know, it has black fur and stuff, so it made me think. But yeah, she's just going to touch it as like very normal. She doesn't really understand death. Like
another
with
brush
Hachi,
with death in a way.
Yeah, with Hachi, it was like something that really made him think. You know, when he saw that cat, when he saw the cat dragging itself, and it kind of shows this contrast of Tanabe is just not. This isn't the moment that changes her, that makes her think. It's something later when we see it.
Yeah. Also, a really small thing, like with the kid hanging out the bus, going to bring us back to that. The kid says, "See you later, alligator." And previously, they already said, "See you later, alligator." And then the mum says, "In a while, crocodile." So it's like one of those cute little like kid sayings, you know.
Yeah, I thought that was so cute.
Good translation, good.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what the original was. And that's also with the metal song before. I wonder if maybe some stuff was lost in translation, some kind of wordplay or something.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, she's like completely unfazed by this, and we have the black cat Kuro is watching on. And Kuro just means black, right, in Japanese? I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. I'm not that educated on these things, but
I'm pretty sure it just means black. But yeah, so like I mentioned before, Yukari is very upset that Tanabe just doesn't talk. It doesn't like show these emotions, especially herself. She's worried, and they've like gone to see a doctor about it, but the doctor said everything's normal. So she's just kind of in a weird space. But Koji's a bit more laid back about this, trying to calm her down a bit, saying that like, you know, like she'll get there eventually. You know, maybe it's even a good thing that maybe she'd be better off not talking at all, which I thought was a very interesting one. And that made me think back to the song again, the kind of metal song, and like, I don't know, is he like ashamed of the things that he's said? Maybe I don't know. I thought it was a really interesting little thing for Koji.
I think in a way, like, it could also be. I mean, this was a great little scene just in general, because there is a lot of like little nuance here, but like he kind of says, oh, maybe, you know, she's better off not talking at all, like, and maybe this is almost his overly optimistic attitude, like, hey, like, this is not like, it's like such a contrast to his younger self, which is quite cool, but it's like, hey, you know, like, it's not that bad, you know, maybe it's better if she doesn't talk. And then like, you know, but then the mom says she was talking to the crows, and he's like, what? Yeah. And then, you know, and then like, he doesn't quite realize initially how upset she is about this. And that's why he kind of says this to be optimistic, but it comes across as like not really getting to the emotional point. It's just very like a very natural bit of dialogue where two people aren't quite realizing it, but then, you know, she has this outburst of how possibly, you know, why, like, she, you know, she hasn't even called me mama yet. You know, how could it be better for us if she doesn't speak? You know, she's got school next year. She'll get bullied. Like, this mom knows the realities of kids who are different and how they get ostracized in elementary school. And he's like, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I didn't need to say that, you know, kind of thing. Yeah. You know, but like, a
lot of it's also a little bit selfish. Like, obviously it is for Tanabe's own sake.
True.
You know, a lot of it is like, I want this relationship with my daughter. I want her to call me mama, you know? And I kind of like that. It's like a little flaw that doesn't really bring a lot of negativity, but it is kind of like a more self-centered way of
it's just a
looking at
very
this.
human depth to emotion.
Yeah, it's very human,
it's,
exactly.
Yeah, it's super like wrapped up with both selfish, altruistic, good and bad emotional reasons, which, it's just a small little outburst, and it's like literally just 2 pages in a volume, and it's just like gives so much more depth to the characterization, and makes these characters feel so much more fleshed out,
vulnerable.
Yeah,
I think I really I like when characters admit something that's not too like it doesn't shine that well on them, of like I just want her to call me mama, like it's like this vulnerability of kind of admitting that and owning it, and I do quite like that.
Yeah,
but,
and
yeah,
like, so I'm reading today. I said this before you started recording. I don't think I said it on the actual recording. I read book 13 from Vinland Saga. It recently came to me in the mail after waiting for quite a while, and it's one of those things where, like, I'm not sure if Yukimura precisely has a dialogue like this now. I mean, this is like a really interesting, mature dialogue, but one thing that Yukimura does remain consistent, and I think this is really, really quite prevalent in Vinland Saga in chapter 182, The Most Dangerous Man, where when it came out, everybody read it. It's like 16 pages long, so everybody's already down about, like, why is there so few chapters this month? That sucks. And it's just a little bit convoluted by what Thorfinn really means with this. And this is, like, very Yukimura, where he puts something out there that feels like, I don't understand what you're saying by it. And what Yukimura has done differently in Vinland Saga to Planetes is that we've talked before about Planetes really kind of not really answering the questions to his abstract theming later on in the volume. Vinland Saga's not really, it's got more plot to distract you. It's got more characterization to distract you. It's not as, let's answer these questions quickly. And it's just an interesting evolution of his style, which I thought was something interesting. But I'm trying to think, can you think of, like, I guess this is almost like the closest thing I can think to is a Thor's Helga relationship, where Thor's calls back from the boat and he says, he kind of loses his words of, like, tell Thorfinn that, and he doesn't quite know what to say, because that's, like, Thor's thing. Like, he just doesn't always put what he wants to say correctly, which I love as a character flaw for, like, the thematic reasons and just, like, endearing him to me. And then Helga's like, don't worry, I know, I understand this. It's kind of like that, but...
Yeah, that I'll tell him,
But...
I think of Halfdan.
Yeah,
his
true.
wife.
That's a great point.
Where she just kind of, like... I think of when he's fighting Sigurd, and, what her name? Hat. She's, like, looking on, like, a little bit, like are they okay? And the wife's like, look at them, they're so happy. And just, like, this kind of different understanding of each other.
Yeah, and how, I don't know, like, but yeah, I mean, I just thought this was, like, a really interesting, mature conversation, which, I'd love to see more of. It'd be interesting to see of it, and yeah, for sure. And what struck me now is, like, ever since you mentioned the whole death thing, which I didn't pick up on before, the next page is a bird eating a butterfly of some sort, so an insect. There's, like, another picture of death with animals, which I think is so interesting. I think this just adds more credibility to your theory. And then the next page after that is a tree, which the father sits underneath, but surrounded by windmills, which is also really interesting imagery, which I don't know what he's trying to mean. Like, it's like a mixture of the natural and the man-made in a way. It's like a tree, like, I mean, I don't think this is realistic. I think they would have cleared out the tree, maybe. But, like,
it does seem like one of those things where it's like, I feel like this means something, but I don't quite understand. Like, obviously, there's a lot of environmentalism themes. Like, windmills are usually considered a more environmentally friendly form of, like, power and electricity and stuff like that. So maybe it's, like, kind of like showing the coexistence Or
maybe the coexistence of like this is like a sustainable coexistence of man,
clean
technology, and nature. But at the same time, lots of time when I think of windmills, I think of this is like a really ugly stain on the horizon. Like you're ruining the beauty of looking at, like a field and stuff. That's often like a complaint I hear with like windmills from like locals. Like, sure, it's this really or like even like solar panels. Like, yeah, you can put solar panels on your roof, and that the reason why you want to put it on your roof is because no one's going to see the solar panels because solar panels are kind of ugly. You know, it's like you want to hide the technology, in a way. So maybe, but I actually think I like your interpretation more. Yeah, for sure. Like the mixture of stuff. And then he's saying again, thinking of loving everyone. You hurt someone, but you don't mean to. I love you the way you are. Like, actually, maybe this is a continuation of what, like, he accidentally hurt his wife earlier on. Maybe that's what it's leading to. But then he finds, Tanabe somehow climbed up, so she's just dazzled with the sunlight. Or maybe she's probably watching the bird eat the
Oh, you're right. Didn't even think about that.
And then the dad just has an earnest conversation with her. It's like about,
I love this.
Yeah, it's
this
just like
so good.
Mom told me, that you talk to crows. That's amazing. I can only talk to humans. Mom talks to humans too. She would really like if you talk to her when you feel like it. I'm sorry, we're being selfish. We, your mother and I, should learn a non-human language so that we can talk to you. It's like a really cute, like, self-reflective thing. It's just like so sweet. Like it's just Yukimura.
It almost makes me think like he's been through because of what he's been through. He's has like we didn't see as much of Yukari's past, so we don't really know much about like where she was before and where she is now. But there was clearly a focus on Koji, where he was before, where he was now. And the wisdom he's kind of gained from that. So he has this very different conversation with her about it. And I like, again, how communication is a very important thing to Yukimura. And language is a very important thing he likes to explore. So I like this kind of like, I don't know, continuation of that little theme there of wanting to communicate, but you can't. But that's when then we have the storm start here. And this is, again, we have Tanabe just kind of looking out the window, very kind of transfixed on it, but emotionless as she kind of usually is. And we have Koji coming home in the storm. Yeah. And they're all just kind of watching the storm together. You have something you want to say?
Yeah, I was initially thought like, oh no, the man-made object is falling down or something. But I think that's just like leaves around or something. I think it's fine. It's withstanding the storm, but it is quite cool. Like there's such violence outside, and they're watching it together. Oh no! Oh, the storm tore off the blades off 3 windmills. That's what he says. I'll call Jake when the storm stops. Huh? Interesting.
Aren't they in Japan? That's a very Jake is a very I don't know. Western kind of name. I did think it was interesting that they said Jake, despite that. But yeah, so they're watching the storm, and Koji makes a little comment here about how she gazes out into space.
Yeah,
and I was kind of surprised. That was the first time that was really brought up, the whole space thing. It doesn't really seem as important to Tanabe's background as like Hachi's, But I mean, we did have her in the tree looking up as well.
Yeah, true.
He says up here, a sunny day, a stormy day, what does she see out there? So yeah, the same thing, looking up at the sun and the tree, looking out at the storm, she kind of looks at it all indifferently, the same way she's seeing something else.
Yeah, and it kind of links to later on her conversation with him where it's like, oh, I feel like I belong in space, which does aid to the alien theory, which we kind of discussed earlier, that she was from space. Yeah, but I noticed actually here, it's like, the dad, he has "shoot me" on his shirt with a target. I just realized it's kind of funny. It's like he's still got a bit of that edge to him.
Yeah. I guess that's where it would be going. I saw it and I thought it was cute. I didn't think of anything of it of like any foreshadowing. He's gonna get shot. No, I don't think that's what it is. I do think it is just kind of a little gag. But we had this cute little moment where he and Tanabe are both kind of looking out the window at this trash can in the same way. They're just kind of like this slack-jawed, in awe, kind of like very transfixed on it. And Yukari points that out, and it's kind of funny. And I do think it kind of speaks again to how Koji and Tanabe are kind of very similar in a lot of ways. Like going back to like in the tree, that little exchange they had, they're kind of on a different little level from Yukari, not in like a very significant way, but Yukari seems to be a lot more normal on her own. They're not very, I wouldn't say they're divided or anything like that, but she definitely has a different perspective from them. But it's really cute. But we see Kuro is out there in the storm, and this is the first time we see like a real expression from Tanabe. She goes from this kind of nothingness to, you get a little frown at the end of this page, and her eyebrows kind of like coming together. It's like looks like a start of sadness. And Kuro turns around and walks away into the storm. And Tanabe has a outburst of emotion that is completely different from how we've seen her up until now. This is a moment of pure shock and anguish. Because I don't even think, even when she was a baby, I don't even think we had her like crying, right? Like there was a mention of her being hungry before, right? But I don't think she was like crying or anything. So this is like really the first outburst of emotion that we get from her, and she says her first word, which is Koro and kitty, and we have her like out there, but we see like, you know, Koji and Yukari like celebrating. They're holding her up in you can see through the window, and they're like trying to get her to say father, say mama, trying to get her, and they just don't realize they're still not there with her. But she's very focused on Kuro, and you can see again Koji has this kind of closer understanding, where the way you can see him looking out the window after she says Kuro gone. And again, it's like that. Sorry, go ahead.
And the mum's still trying to like talk to her, say, "Oh, say my name, say mama, say mama."
Yeah, exactly.
And, like, they're both framed by this window as they're both looking at, and she's still looking at Tanabe, which is
she's her mouth's still open there. She's still saying that. So again, it seems like exploring this like how Koji is a bit closer to understanding her than Yukari, which is very, very interesting. And I was going to say something, it just completely slipped my mind. Okay, yeah. So we have the starting out the window, and Kuro is gone now. So this is where I started to really think about... before we get into that. This is, again, the selfishness aspect of it, how like they're immediately like... She says something, but they don't really care what she's saying. They're just enthralled that she could finally potentially say father, papa, daddy, mama. You know, she could say these things. They're not really thinking about what she's actually saying in that sort of selfish manner we brought up earlier. But so this is where I think it's best to really think about what is the cat? What does it mean for Tanabe, in the same way that we kind of evaluated what the cat means to Hachi. And it seems like, again, it's both rooted in this fear and having to do with death, but with Tanabe, it's more about what's being left behind, whereas Hachi's kind of worried about the process of the inevitability of it. She's thinking more about when it happens, if it happens, what will happen to the people I care about. And she doesn't want her parents to feel this abandonment and this loss that she felt when she saw Kuro walk away into the storm. And she similarly goes into this storm when she goes to space. It's the same thing. And they lose Kuro then. And Tanabe doesn't want others to feel that pain. And that kind of roots back, like Hachi's is very focused on the self, where Tanabe is very focused on empathy. Like,
Interesting, yeah.
and that was like sort of the whole thing of her introduction. She's introducing empathy into to Hachi, because Hachi's been very focused on himself.
Mm-hmm.
So they both have these cats, and it both seems to be fear and relating to death, but they have these different ways about it that sort of sets it up in a different manner, but in a way that brings them together, and I really love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also wonder, she sees Hachi and the cat too, of Hachi going off on this mission alone and not coming back.
Yeah, that's a great point too.
I think that was my initial interpretation, and then when I went through it the second time, I was thinking a bit more about what does the cat mean to her, just on her own, Hachi excluded.
Yeah. No, I think these are fantastic points. I just haven't considered any of them at all.
No, that's all right.
No, it's just trying to consume them. I think, I just think it's a great point in general that, like, there is this, like, I guess we will get onto it later. I did write some stuff down. I just didn't make the connection to the cat.
Sure.
But it's like, actually, let's talk about it later.
Sure.
Almost to chapter 16. But yeah, I mean, I just like this scene of her getting off the same bus that she was on with her mother. You know, it's the same type of bus. You know, they used to take to school.
Cute.
You know, and then she comes sees her dad, and they come eat underneath the tree. And she lets out the cat, and then she gets sad once again. The cat runs away. You know.
I kind of got a little emotional when she called out Kuro.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me like Vinland Saga when Thorfinn is with like the English family and the mother starts calling him John, and then when Thorfinn runs away, she like genuinely calls out John, and I kind of thought obviously she named the cat Kuro.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's fine, but
and then like the cat runs off in the same manner, like it's not raining anymore, but it's like off the horizon, and then
the same, like the way the tail's up too.
Yeah, exactly, and then
Koro's the same way.
There's a little prayer, and it's like a little prayer. I always wanted to thank old Kuro.
I love that.
Achan to Mama and Papa, like, because there was the cat initially with her, and it's like, and then now I see this new scene of and here's an interesting one, and then finally we get a scene of a moth drinking nectar. And
oh my god!
It's almost like I don't think I guess it is more consumption, but it's like not killing the plant, and it's like more for life. You know?
Yeah.
Maybe it's more like, oh, here's life now, and then, you know, please feed her if she comes back. And
I completely glossed over that.
Yeah, it's like, no, I mean, this is the thing. I missed all this, like, you know, these like neat, nice little. So easy to overlook at these in manga because it just takes up a small part of the page, but you know, and then they talk about space, and she's like, you know, he's like, oh, that's good, very rock and roll where you get to float in space, which I think that's just a cool way of saying it. But then, you know, then she says, I always feel like it's strange, you know, space has always been like my home. And this brings like great sadness to her dad. It's like, you know, and it kind of builds upon like the family just wants her to return home safe whenever she comes back. That's all she wants to do. And I think it's like, then they kind of look up and at the sky, and all they can see is windmills, and it's just like, I love windows. They're funny looking, you know. I think it's just really quite cute. And then like they have this moment where he's like, do you find it, so you don't find it strange living up in space? Why do you think like this? And she doesn't really know. And then she just says, yes, a woman's intuition. And does that come up? I feel like that's a reference to something old, and I've forgotten the reference. Is it like in Vinland Saga, or is it in an earlier chapter? I feel like the woman's intuition. I do think
I think something was brought up in a very similar way, just kind of like mother's intuition with their mom. I do think, there was like this little conversation with Hachi and his mom on the porch.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they had a very similar kind of interaction there.
Yeah. And one thing I like is like you can see. Oh, so what's the father's name again? Koji?
Koji, yes.
Yeah. I like how he has the same like crazed pose, like where he's shocked with one eye big and one eye small, same as Fee earlier on in the chapter where like they're like, oh, and then he's like, then he has this like, aha, you got me, that's right, kind of like he's like, of course, like I don't know what he quite means, but he's kind of like, of course I should just believe you when you say you want to do it. I shouldn't ask these questions, maybe, like,
yeah.
It's kind of like it's like so simple, but like it doesn't have to be a big deep reason. It's just how it is in a way or something. I don't know. I'm not sure what.
Yeah.
It's like a cute moment, and there are a lot of these cute little moments. Like Yukimura does. I'm going to tie it back to book 13 because it's on my mind. But it's like when Thorfinn is talking to Varga about the Norns, and then Varga brings up the Norns back up again. It's like, oh, how do you know? You know, you're gonna.
Yeah.
Like, it's like this cute moment at the end of the chapter where they just laugh, and you're just like, oh, that's cute. You know, it's like bringing it up again. So, yeah.
I do have a couple points here. Back at the one line you already mentioned it, where he says he does the prayer for Kuro to thank Kuro for bringing Achan back to Mama and Papa, and I think this just kind of the cat was there when they found Tanabe on the porch, but I think this is to show that he understood what happened in the storm scene. He got it. He realized that Kuro's kind of sacrifice there is what got Tanabe to speak and brought Tanabe to them.
Mm-hmm. But also, it brought her back home from space.
Yeah, that too. Again, this new cat also brought her back to Mama and Papa. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, so it just works on so many levels, which is very cool.
I also really do like this, that she comes to the dad first, and again, like this kind of dynamic we have going, where he kind of understands her a bit better. She does seem to have a closer relationship with her dad, and it is kind of a sad thing because the mom really wants it, and she does have a close relationship with her mom.
I think it's also because like the dad's, she's just seeing him on her way home to her mom. Because her dad's working out in the fields. I think it's like the first stop. But
I don't think she went seeking him out as much, like wanted to see him first or anything like that. It just seems like she has a sort of deeper relationship with him, where there's a bit more of an understanding.
Connection, that's true.
Yeah, it's the vibe I got.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think that pretty much wraps up this chapter. There is one note. I realized halfway through that I missed it when I talked about Tanabe being hungry. But there's a gag that's exactly like the Thorfinn and Gudrun gag, where they mention that, Yukari mentions that Tanabe seems hungry, and Koji's like, is that something, can you like do that? And she's like, no, I can't. About producing milk. It's the same gag.
Yeah. Oh,
I thought that was very funny.
Is this? Yeah, this sound way back. Let me find this.
Yeah, it was way back when they found the kid at the beginning. Let's see.
Yeah, so it's like.
No, here it is. She's looking for a breast to suckle. Oh, she must be hungry. Can you do that? Don't be silly. Of course not. It's the same, that same gag again. That he must. Yukimura must have some experience with this exact.
He did that. He did that, and his wife's like,
definitely
"No,
did that.
Stupid," and then he's like,
That's
put
so
it in his
funny.
mug ever since. Yeah, No, I caught that the first time I read it, but the second time I didn't catch it. So yeah, glad you brought that up. Good gag.
Cool. Do you have anything else you wanted to point out about chapter 13 before we move on?
No, it's just a fantastic chapter.
Yeah, I absolutely adored this chapter. So, before we go into 14, I have a little side tangent.
Okay.
Little discovery. So, when I was taking notes on my second read through, like I've said before, we're reading through the omnibus volumes, but when I was taking notes, I wanted to have the manga on one side of my computer and have my notes on the other. It's just easier to take notes that way. Mm-hmm. So, I looked up a scan online, and what I realized in this chapter that I wasn't reading a scan of the Japanese volumes that had English, it wasn't a scantillation. It was a scan of an English volume. So there was English volumes published by Tokyo Pop that were actually split up the same way as the Japanese volumes. which and these are much older. I think these were closer to when Planetas First was being released, or like, you know, after it had concluded, maybe a little bit into Vinland Saga having started. But so I realized I was reading a scan of the Tokyo Pop English paperback volume 3, and at the end of this chapter there's an editor's note, and it talks about the poem from last volume, the Black Flowers, called Saki no Haka. And if you remember from our last discussion, I had talked about how I went all over the internet trying to find an English translation of this poem, the full poem, and I could not. I had no luck whatsoever. And the editor's note is about exactly this. So the editor talks about how there's no official scholarly translation for the full poem in English, and the editor for the Tokyo Pop volumes decides that he would leave the poem untranslated in these volumes. So in this initial release, the poem wasn't translated at all. It was just left in the original Japanese, because he didn't want to, there would be like the difficulties of the metaphors and the imagery and trying to translate that over. But after that Tokyo Pop volume had been released, he received letters from fans who asked him for a translation. So he said, there's like his exact words, "This is my humble translation for the poem." And as I was reading it, I realized this poem is exactly the same translation that ends up getting used in the omnibus volume, word for word.
Oh, really? That's cool.
And after doing a bit more research, I realized the omnibus volumes they're published by Dark Horse, but they are a reprint of these Tokyo Pop volumes. So the same editor, and I guess they liked the translation that they end up having for it so much from the editor's notes here that they decided it was of quality enough to include in the omnibus remasters. And that is my tangent.
Cool.
I just thought that was really cool. I just went down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, we found it. So Yuki Johnson is the translator.
Yep.
Yeah, well, a small team. It's crazy how small the teams that do this. Okay, so this is 2016.
I couldn't find evidence of him being listed as editor in the same guy being listed as editor in the omnibus volumes. I was trying to look for that, but I did find a website that seemed to credit him for the omnibus volumes, so he might be the editor. But it might just be credited to him because it's a reprint of the original Tokyo Pop volumes that he edited. And I don't know, was it the editor who did the translation, or did he ask the translator to do a rough translation? So I'm that much is a bit unclear, but I think we can pretty much pinpoint the exact person who did a rough English translation of this poem, which is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, yeah, for sure.
And like we theorized, there is no other English official translation. This is like the official one.
This is
so
the
cool.
one. Yeah. And just before we actually go into the next one, I also wanted to point out that there's the butterfly eating from the nectar is called a cabbage butterfly, which is on this in-between page, which I just noticed as we flicked over. So so that's a tangent upon your tangent. But hey ho, that's this video series in a nutshell.
Oh my god, yeah, no, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right.
Man,
Chapter
I'll be honest,
14,
I feel like if
yeah.
I was reading this when this came out, I could do a deep dive on every single chapter. Like, this is the kind of thing, like, we're getting so much out of every single chapter. It's just quality stuff. Like, to be fair, these chapters are longer, though, than Vinland Saga.
They are longer, yeah, but I feel like I get just as much out of every Vinland Saga chapter as I get out of every Planetas chapter. That's why I've never been one to complain about Vinland Saga chapter lengths, because they're dense. Even if things don't happen, they just give you things to think about, and these chapters do exactly that. That's why I couldn't do, like a chapter by chapter review of maybe like One Piece or JoJo's in the same kind of way, because a lot of them, they just aren't these chapters that present ideas that you digest. It's just mostly like, here's what happened, what do I think is going to happen next, and that's your review. That's why I really love Yukimura's work. Every chapter gives you something. There's always something to talk about, to think about.
That is true.
But so yeah, chapter 14. If we're ready to go, we start off with this weird vision of Hachi. So this is like the first time aliens have been really brought up, and this immediately made me start thinking, like, is this gonna be something that we seriously encounter later, or is this just like Yukimura kind of like, I don't know, making a little gag of the idea of aliens being in space? Because I don't see aliens just casually making an appearance here.
Maybe they find something on Jupiter, but yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure it'll all thematically make sense, for sure. But yeah, I mean, this design, I feel like I've seen this alien design elsewhere, but it's
feels
so
like a
cute.
Star Wars alien to me.
I feel like, I was gonna say it feels like a Star Wars kind of like.
Reminds me of the Porg thing from the newer Star Wars movies.
But the Porg is copied. But this was written before Porgs. That's so
they
true.
Copied Planet S.
Yeah, exactly. Porgs. Hang on, I need to find them.
It looks like it's not really.
No. The face is actually exactly the same.
All right, I gotta look up.
Holy crap!
Right, hold on, send me the image.
Okay, everybody. So below the waist it doesn't. But everybody now go have a look at a Porg, and then have a look at this image, and it looks. Star Wars copied them. Look at this. It's got the same eyes. It's got the same mouth.
That is so.
It's got the little whiskers.
My God. Hold on, what kind of feet? Okay, he's got like
the feet are really different.
The fur. Yeah,
this is like a bird, but
that's so funny.
This also actually, you know what this looks like? This also looks like a dude from it's the guy that Spirited Away. Hang on, have you watched Spirited Away?
Oh. I haven't, but I've seen so much that I understand what you mean.
So it's the guy that follows them around.
Ghibli.
Spirited. Hang on. I'm having to type with one hand. Spirited Away. Fuzzy
guy.
Fuzzy white dude. Hold on. I'm getting there, folks. Typing with one. Look. Yeah, it looks like this guy a little bit. Hold up. And this guy you think is really creepy at the beginning, but then he's like not. And then he's like, you like feel bad for misinterpreting, like assuming the worst in like a weird looking alien dude. So
I'm definitely gonna have to put these on screen.
Yeah. So
for the video.
So hey anyway, this feels like a familiar design, but also like really cute. I feel like I could make a lot of merchandise out of this.
Yeah. Okay. Chapter 14, anyway.
He's
off our tangents as we do.
His StarCraft, he's looking at the thing that's. He's talking to this alien, which is spiraling. I guess this alien. I think this alien is replaced by Tanabe later, which is kind of weird. And they just look off into the Milky Way, which is beautiful. But it's just like the three of them, the shell, the furry dude, and then Hachi.
Yeah.
90,000 light years. Anyway, it's so weird. It's like, can you go back? It's just so super trippy.
It is super trippy.
And then
I do like this is when I kind of realized that Hachi's main problem is that after coming to the realizations he did at the end of last volume, he's now started to genuinely fear the idea of being so far away that he will never be able to go back. As opposed to, again, like I said before, as opposed to the romanticization of dying out in space. He wants to get back now. That's an important thing to him, and he's trying to process the vastness of it. And man, as I was reading this myself, I was starting to really think about it and get like a kind of pit in my stomach over it. Just the idea of just like, if I go on a long trip somewhere, I think about like, how long of the journey back I'll have to get back home. Like I did a drive to see my parents over my like winter break recently. I did a drive down for Christmas. I drove down to Florida from New Jersey. It's about like a 16-hour drive, and the whole time I was there.
You North Americans are insane. I don't
oh yeah, right. Dude,
I couldn't drive
crazy.
16 hours in the UK if I even wanted to. I think the longest like north to south drive I could do would be like 13 hours. Like that's like from tip to tip. I mean, of course we could go to Europe and drive for as long as we wanted, but like on our little island,
yeah,
the size of Alabama, like we're not going anywhere. So,
but yeah, Yeah, I did this drive, and the whole time I was there, I was thinking about the 16-hour drive back, and it just didn't leave my head. And just the idea of that on a like 90,000 light year scale just put a pit in my stomach. It was just, it's certainly something to think about.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But that's where Hachi is right now. He's got that huge pit in his stomach there.
I used to complain because I used to live, well, for university, I went to Newcastle, which is like the most northern city in England. And to go back down to my parents in London, it'd be like a more like a 5-hour drive. And I'm like, I just never go apart from like twice a year, you know, kind of deal. And, you know, like now I live like way closer and it's so much nicer. Like 5 hours, like to me, just kind of killed me a little bit. Like, yeah, sure, I can listen to 2 podcasts. I can't imagine what 16 hours are like. I mean, I have traveled for like 25 hours nonstop before, but that's like flying and stuff. But yeah, that was crazy.
That's when I get my time to listen to like those 3-hour review videos on YouTube. I love those. I just queue up a bunch of them and just drive.
Nice.
I can't do music, man. When I'm driving, it makes me tired. Listening to like podcasts and stuff just keeps me thinking.
Yeah, I think also
Definitely
music
helps.
like makes things feel so much longer as well because you go through so many more songs than like one podcast.
Yeah. Okay, off topic. Back. Kind of on topic, but let's get back into it. So, this chapter starts bringing up sexuality a lot, and it starts bringing up sexuality almost as like a solution to Hachi's problems.
In a very funny way, because his dad's floating all this porn into his room when he wakes up. He's like, huh? Why is there like... It's just like using the gag of space, like the environment of space to make funny gags. Cause, like,
I don't even think about it. It feels so natural.
All this trash is like floating around him. It's like, why are there so many... Why are there so many boobs everywhere? It's like... it's so funny. And his dad's just at the door. His dad is like... It's actually... I've met so many of these types of guys where they're just like, you can't have a serious conversation with them and they're so annoying and they feel for Sally, but they're also hilarious and you hate them because you find them funny, but then also like, yeah, they're great. And anyway, it's like Sally's really, really worried about Hachi, which is really sweet. And then like all the dudes, like his dad's like, this guy's like so stoic, you know, like he has no libido. It's weird for a man, you know, or whatever, and then like they're all watching porn for educational reasons, and they actually seem like they're generally watching for educational reasons, but they're also like commenting. It's like a big dude bro moment, and then like the one woman on the whole thing walks in on them. It's like, oh, are you doing a bit of visual training, huh? And they're like, oh yeah, and then like how seriously the dad takes this just so funny.
It's such a weird thing. You know, something like I can't see myself ever doing something like this as an adult, right? Is Locksmith in there? It looks like Locksmith in the middle. Is he?
No, Locksmith. No way, Locksmith is getting in on this.
Look at his nose. The guy.
It's the same nose, but yeah,
it looks like it. There's no way.
Locksmith is like, this is great stuff, lads.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
That certainly shocked. I mean, hey, it's a team building exercise that he seems to be.
Hey, everybody's watched a little bit of porn with their homies, right? Right? Yeah. So like, yeah, I know what you mean.
It feels like a kid thing. It definitely like
a bunch of teenagers.
You're like you don't have access to it very easily, so you're like all like gathered around like it's a thing that comes up a lot in like in manga that focus on like Japanese like school life, like the finding a porno mag in the forest kind of thing, and then like all the neighborhood kids gather around. They're like, whoa. It's a very Japanese kind of thing. And I guess it's to show, like, the immaturity, I guess.
Yeah, I think it is a gag, and it's just making fun of
these schoolboys, yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, it's interesting, because Yukimura doesn't normally, like really touch on this stuff that much. But it's interesting how he kind of talks about... And then, of course, Yukimura is, still a young... hot-blooded man at this point in his life, I guess. So, hasn't got as many kids around. So, there's definitely probably more on his mind. But
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
feel like like the way he approaches sexuality in Vinland Saga, at least, is in a very respectful way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like he will approach it in like a matter of fact kind of way, and he does that too here later. And maybe the purpose of it is to juxtapose this against what happens later.
Yeah, I think it is interesting. It is also kind of like, while you see like it's a contrast in fatherhood between, you know, Koji and like I forget this dad's name, begins with a G, right?
Goro.
Yeah, it's like, anyway, it is kind of funny, like he's taking an overly, like, he is very concerned by going around it in his like silly understanding way, while like Sally's actually trying to understand what the issue with Hachi is genuinely.
Yeah.
And she's just anyway, like it's just a joke, but I think it's also to like mentally prepare ourselves for the shocking thing that kind of happens later.
Yes, exactly. I think it's to bring it up
Yeah.
and juxtapose it. Absolutely.
And Sally goes to Locksmith, and the main thing about this conversation is that Locksmith kind of says, like, you all fail together here. You know, you must be the perfect family, and if you can't get your one of your siblings, one of your family members to cooperate, you can't do it at all. And I think the family thing is interesting because it kind of pushes more onto, like, how Sally is having to be the mother here. Now, she's not the only woman on this ship. Later on, it kind of suggests there's lots of other ladies as well. But
yeah, for sure.
Anyway, like, she's kind of, I don't know why, but she's definitely pushed out to be a maybe more masculine lady. Like, she's got a bit of a
very tomboyish.
She's got more of a punk rock vibe to her. She's got all these rings. She's kind of seen as, like, Hachi comments on how she's, like, out of character for her to go on picnics, you know, like, oh, that's cute. Like, you're not a cute person, you're kind of more hardcore, and like, but she's very emotional, she's very empathetic, you know, so like, yeah, she's a good character, well written. Yeah,
she's a really good character for like the little bit of time we've just kind of had. She's so well realized.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to more of her. And then she talks to Goro, and you know, like, Goro's trying to, like, basically they found all this porn and they're gonna show Hachi it, and Hachi's like, yeah, sure, I'll go along with it. And then it's like the contrast, their two methods, because Sally's then like, okay, did you enjoy that? Like, actually ask him what he's thinking. And it's like, Hachi's just so, like, dispassionate about everything, and she's like, just eat more, make sure you eat more. And he's like, okay, I will. Like, I'm eating not because I want to eat, but because I'm commanded to. And then it has this big realization. It's like, she's like, can I just do anything for you? Because you clearly need something. And then he says, no, I don't need anything, which is like the most frustrating thing for her, because she's like, no, something's wrong.
Absolutely needs help, but just doesn't see it.
Yeah, and it's like, it's just lack of, like, he's just completely lost in what he wants and what he needs. And it's not like this pridefulness that he has before. It's just like this being abandoned at sea. And then, you know, there's the next scene, like, she, like, yanks him along, and this is like, I think this is like such a stunning moment for me, because I know how sparingly Yukimura uses nudity in his manga. Like, you compare it to lots of, I mean, I like, say, Berserk. Like, you see nudity in Berserk every, like, 2 pages you're on. No, I mean, that's an exaggeration, but, you know, like, Yukimura, like, in Vinland Saga,
it's very tasteful.
Yeah, and here it's like, she's, like, standing over him, and, like, and instead of, like, having sex, but, like, I like how, like, she doesn't, like, put her clothes back on. She's just there, and she's not, like, sexualized for having her top off. It's just, like, matter of fact, and they have a conversation, and she just doesn't have a shirt on. And it's, like, very natural, and I kind of like that. It's just, like, hey, this is just... It's not, like... I feel like with so many manga, like, when you do, like, any sort of nudity, even if the
exaggeration,
the context of the scene, when it's talked about it, it's like, oh yeah, this is a normal conversation they're having it, but they still have the woman posed in an alluring fashion, like, to me, like, oh, let's make them look as sexy as possible for our male audience to read it, or female audience as well, I guess. But, like, she's just standing there. It's not like you got this wide view of, like, Hachi on the bed, and she's standing above him, like, buck naked, and she's not, like, got a hand on her hip with her trying to, like, show off her butt or anything. She's just, like, standing really normally and rigidly, And it's like
Yeah.
very matter of fact, and it like doesn't break the immersion. Everyone just feels so much more mature and so much better. I don't know, like just no, not better, just tasteful, and I personally enjoy the style more.
I was a bit put off by it at first. I didn't really like the idea that she would just throw herself onto Hachi. It felt like a kind of, I don't know, an extension of my initial problem with Tanabe, where it's just like, I don't really see them that way, and all of a sudden we're here. Like, obviously with Tanabe now, things have changed. Time has been taken to really develop it. But it felt like she was just throwing herself on him. But, as I continued on, I did feel a little bit better about it and the way it was used.
Yeah, and
it's very tender.
Yeah, I think, I was kind of similar. I was like, okay, wow, this does feel like an exaggeration of taking more exaggeration. This does not feel like, oh, it would fit the protocol. This does not feel realistic. This feels very like gag manga-esque in a way.
Yeah.
And I think in a way it is, but it's like, so she's taking the extremes, like, okay, they're trying to show her all this visual training, but he's not getting the real deal. So I'm going to try and give him the real deal to make him feel something, because he's a young man, he should feel it. And then this, like, they're just finally able to chat about it, and Hachi actually opens up about it. Like,
I really love this.
Yeah, like in a way, it like, while how you got to this situation is a bit exaggerated, but he's actually just like, sorry, I've just not had a libido at all since I've been in space, and it's just like this whole like situation, like the context they're in, after you get into it, makes a lot of sense, and it kind of like validates its existence after the fact. And it's like he's just so lost and so out of himself that he doesn't have really any biological urges. He's not hungry. He doesn't have a libido. He doesn't have a want to live. He's just like he's just, his mentality is just detached from his body and its needs and what it wants, because he's lost all this weight. And then he finally talks about this dream he's been having. It's like dazzling. It doesn't go up whenever he feels there. It just feels dizzy. And this is what like Sally wanted this whole time. He just wants him to open up.
To open up, yep.
Yeah. And then she hugs him, and then you're like, then I look at this scene, I'm like, okay, this is weird. Like, she's just mushing him into her chest, and that's like is this going to be another, weird anime manga scene? And no, it's like way better.
It just felt nothing like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it just, because then it goes back and talks about Tanabe, and it's like, and she just understands him, like, in a way. I think she finally connects it, because this is probably something she's been through. It's like, oh, you're fine, you're strong, you're very strong. When you live in space long enough, you begin to realize how insignificant you are, and you get this overwhelmed by the infinity. Kind of what I said before. I should just stole it straight from this part. And the right man is trying to perceive the vastness of space.
This is my favorite panel. I love this panel. It's so good.
Yeah, and I think this kind of retroactively gives more reason to Sally's characterization to be a Christian in a way, and her religion in a way is a way for her to contain the vastness of space, and her way of coping with it in a way. Maybe, like she's able to feel like there is a purpose to it all. It's a grand, like, because lots of people who are of faith will look at the heavens and be like in awe, and this kind of awe of the universe makes you feel small, and you can either become nihilistic about it or think, dude, there must be something greater than myself out there, and that thing must be God. And there's like two feelings towards that, and I like this kind of contrast between like her reaction, maybe one of something more religious, and then Hachi's is more one of nihilistic, but they both understand the same feeling, and she's been there, now she's nurturing him. And what actually works is she brings him back to that Tanabe feeling where he's like,
exactly.
He just falls asleep straight away, and she's like, oh wow, his brain's connected to his body again. He's tired, like he's feeling weary, he sleeps well, and anyway, I sorry, I just rambled for a bit.
No, you're good.
I covered a lot of stuff. What do you think?
I really like how much weight Yukimura likes to put on hugs. I feel like most manga, they'll like focus on the kiss a lot. The kiss is the really
just media in general.
one.
I feel like the kisses.
Yeah, the kiss is always the important one. But with Tanabe, for example, they have the little kiss thing, but the thing that sticks with him is the hug. And again, here it's the hug, like the fact that she doesn't have a shirt on doesn't even like mean anything. It's the hug itself.
Yeah, exactly.
And we'll see it again later in the next chapter. I think we see another hug, but I it's just like this like mature thing of like the weight of hugs, because I love hugs. I'm a big hugger, and I like like a long hug can do so much for you, and I really just love how much weight and emphasis he likes to put on it. I think it's really nice. And I guess like closing out here, I also really love how this chapter ends. I like that she is just relieved after all this. She's completely unbothered. She wasn't like looking for anything else to happen but this goal of helping Hachi. And that has happened. She's achieved her goal, and she's just relieved.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't bother her at all, the fact that she's naked. Because like I feel like most like manga anime, she'll kind of like snap out of it and be like, oh my god, I'm naked. But no, she's just like, she's relieved. She's happy.
That's a great point. Yeah. It's just feels there's a maturity to the scene which I love,
Yes.
And
exactly.
I feel like it doesn't feel self-indulgent. It doesn't feel like it's tinted with this self of, oh, I'm trying to make you feel horny right now, or I've read so many like manga where it's like I'm being deep here as we are seeing two characters have sex, and I'm sure, and then lots of time you can have really good explanations and of like why this scene has a lot of depth to it, like in TV shows as well. Like this is Western as well, where you're like, well, there's a lot of like depth and characterization going on in this intimate scene, but at the same time, like they're trying to make it hot, and I'm like,
exactly.
And I'm just like,
they're trying to have your cake, eat it too.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, no, don't like. Anyway, it's just a stunning amount of maturity to it, and I mean, you see that with like Arnid in Farmland, where it's like she has this whole conversation and she has a top off because that's what would happen in that situation. She would be there, she'd probably just have sex with Castle, or they're spooning or whatever. This is what is happening, and it's not like, sure, Arnie is sure to be beautiful, but it's not like, anyway, it doesn't feel like they're being objectified, even even though Arnie is literally objectified by people in the manga, but anyway, but like it feels just so much more tasteful, and I don't know, it's just also to my taste more personally how I like to read stuff. Absolutely. I'm not here to be like, hey, if you guys are big fans of manga that does that, I'm not trying to make you feel necessarily bad. I'm sure there are instances where I would say, let's not do that. Let's be more tasteful. But like it doesn't mean that just because I think Planet Test does it well here doesn't mean that whatever you may like it's like the worst thing ever and you should feel bad.
For sure.
I'm not trying to shame people. But anyway, just saying I like the contrast and what makes it super unique. So
yeah, I think too. There's the scene in Vinland Saga of Gudrun getting like it's like a bath or something. Somebody's like cleaning her.
Exactly.
And it's because Yukimura has this respect for a woman that you just don't see as much in manga and media in general. I mean, a lot of people, I think nowadays, like the respect for women is kind of like emphasized a bit more and stuff. But Yukimura does it in such a natural way that feels just so genuine to him. Like the way he views motherhood, the way he views like what women have to go through. Yeah, he has just this overwhelming respect. Yeah, that I absolutely adore. Yeah, and
interesting. The contrast with Yukimura is that he actually does the opposite with male characters. Like, and it's a bit of a meme with particularly the anime at the moment. Like now because I don't swing that way, I don't have as much of a problem with it, which is probably hypocritical on my part. But I'm getting whipped against the tree with the biggest back muscles I've ever seen in my life. And then everybody on, Vinland Saga Twitter being like, oh my gosh, Ina's hot or whatever, like, and then making even more muscular, more like sexy. I do feel like, I mean, even in Vinland Saga, like this is like he would, and there's the infamous like Thorfinn, bathing scene, like so. Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like you might be a little bit poisoned by the fans on Twitter, because I feel like when I read those scenes completely, like before I ever entered the community aspect of Vinland Saga, before I ever caught up, just reading those scenes myself, as I was going through it. I never thought of it that way.
Oh, I think in the actual manga itself, the only one is that I call into question with that is actually the Thorfinn one. I think loads of the ones
True.
that Aina and Thorfinn are working with their tops off, absolutely fine. But with the anime specifically,
yeah, they definitely
Aina's
have an
super rich,
admiration.
and we know that they as a meme they've said we'll make sure Snake is sexy, and there's definitely
That's
that,
a
like,
very good point.
Yeah. So there's like definitely like, oh, let's I don't know, like there is a big female audience for Vinland Saga, particularly on Twitter. There's also
quite big, yeah.
There's I think lots of people are attracted to the male characters, and it kind of makes sense because they're mostly male characters in this manga. So like, and I think Abaru, the character designer, I want like he seems to enjoy making them sexy. So go ahead, like. But anyway, it's just one of those interesting things. Like I know we're talking about now, but just to clarify that hey, this restraint of showing people with actually no in the manga, I think the only one is the Thorfinn bathing scene actually. Like, but I like how you pull out the Gudrid one. It's like, oh, here we're just showing the ritual, and it'd be interesting. It'd be so fascinating when we, if it does get animated, because actually we could get that in season 2 theoretically. I don't, I know we potentially, but like that scene of Gudrid, I wonder how the anime does it, and if it feels different to me, even if they replicate the panel exactly the same, if it just feels to me because it's an anime and not in manga or something, but I like your point, because also Gudrid's anatomy is drawn like an actual woman, which is oh my word,
absolutely
blow my brains out for manga, so like
this is what women look like.
What is this
All right, let's not Vinland Saga too much here.
Sorry, we are
either way. The point,
yeah.
it all comes back. Yukimura has this respect for women. That is just a core part of his work. That makes me wonder then, like with the adaptation of Planet Test, I think I want to watch it after I finish reading. I really want to see how they adapt some of these things, because like this is before Yukimura was.
They're going to
really,
censor
like,
it so much, surely.
Surely they will, but this is before Yukimura was, I feel like, a really, I don't know, well-defined author. So maybe they may have felt a bit more liberty in how they adapted it, making it more anime like ish, maybe like a little bit more, I guess, streamlined to the standards that anime usually operates on. That's what I kind of expect from it.
Actually,
I feel like with Vinland Saga, there's like a respect for Yukimura's work
maybe
there.
for next time, for our final one, because I think we're going to read the rest of the manga after this part. I'm going to probably try and binge the whole series. And
I was thinking the same thing. I didn't want to commit to it.
Yeah.
But I would like to have a little...
If
soft commit to it, yeah.
Soft commit. But... Well, we're looking at
I would like to have a little discussion about it. Yeah. I would like that, for sure.
Cool. And okay. Or maybe we make a different video. Who knows? We'll see.
Oh yeah, I guess we could see how long we go, or who knows? It might come up naturally throughout the discussion of it.
Of course, and then and then I also like this ending scene where she's like he's asleep and he's like sleeping like with her head on one of her legs, and she's like ooh, and it's just like supernatural, like just the posing, and then the next scene is like the same opening one from the previous chapter, but this time instead of the furball, instead of the porg, we've got ourselves Tanabe
chapter 15,
and like her eyes are obscured, and then you turn the page and it's this beautiful like she's
so good,
and then she has like a stomach that's like, Tanabe, your stomach bug is hungry, it killed the moment. Like it's one of those funny things, and like and then
I like how sorry, before we kind of leave this introduction scene, I really do like how that you could see Hachi already. You could see his face is rounder again, and he's kind of looking in awe with her. Like she's pointing out to something, and he feels the kind of like awe and excitement again, rather than the dread and the like existentialism of just seeing the vastness. It's like a beauty that he can see now, and I really love that.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, even in the next page where he wakes up and he's like, they're not spooning, they're not really cuddling, but they're just together. I mean, I think this image of them in bed, once again, like almost feels like Sally is his mother figure in a way, because how he's curled up like a little child in a way.
Yeah.
Like, there's something to that, which I think that's probably why I got the mothering imagery. But anyway, like, Like you just see his eyes straight away, and they seem so much more alive. And he's hungry here. Oh, he has the same like stomach growl as
oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
And then you go
That's
to the
cute.
next page, and this is like beautiful Yukimura expressions. Just like
I immediately
Yukimura
thought of
expression.
Canute.
Yeah.
I immediately thought of Canute starting to laugh a little bit.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and he has that same like, oh, he's gonna laugh, and then he's like, oh, I'm hungry. Like his mind is now connected back to his biological needs, in a way.
Yep.
And so,
I love what happened here because it's just like the cat said in their little conversation. By looking at the dark, he was able to see the light. He was able to. Sally helped him look at his problem directly in the eyes, and now he's kind of not obscured. And like kind of like what Tanabe was thinking about, like it's what you're looking for is right in front of you all along. Like the little alien thing was Tanabe in that kind of way. It's like she was there the whole time. I thought it was really cute, but but just by seeing that. And understanding, acknowledging that he's trying to process the vastness of it all and the effect it's had on him, he is able to sort of dream again in clarity of the home he needs to get back to and where that home is and the solution to his problems. And it's all Tanabe. And everything that she represents, that she has kind of brought to him.
Yeah, so true. It's just good stuff. Like I read this for the first time, and I'm like, yeah, this is really good. And then I took over with you. I'm just like, this is so much better. Like, I honestly think like if I read this manga by itself, I'd be like, yeah, this is really interesting, really cool. But like just digging into it more and just dwelling on it just makes it better. And I'm not sure how many things I could have done that with. There's probably lots of things I could, but yeah. Anyway.
I do think this is a very transforming experience. Just like kind of talking with you about it every time we like every month.
Yeah, and
just being able to really process it.
Yeah, and hopefully the viewers also feel this way as well. But
I'm not sure how many people would be like going through it with us, kind of thing. But I hope everybody is kind of getting as much out of this as we are.
For sure.
Real quick before we move on to kind of like what's going on next, when Hachi finishes laughing and all that, and he looks over to Sally, I really like this because even though nothing really happened between them, like sexually or anything like that, Hachi kind of seems to feel some sadness and guilt when he looks at her, like I shouldn't be here with another woman in a bed, like naked. Like I think he's kind of like processing the fact that he was in that situation, and he probably feels guilty in a way, like a loyalty to Tanabe now that he's kind of come to this realization.
Which panel gets that? Is this like, so here's the one where he says oops, but that's because he was laughing and he was afraid of waking her up.
The next page, like this process.
The bottom
he
one
looks at her,
where he's sitting on the bed with her. Okay, that's interesting interpretation, but yeah, no, that makes sense because his eyes are kind of like downcast and he's looking at it, and yeah, he's in thought. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, because like before he was just emotionally disconnected from the whole situation altogether, and now that he has his emotions back, I'm glad we kind of see him with a range of emotions now. He's like, we have like he's hungry, he's like laughing, and then he has this kind of like sadness, and then we just see him go through a lot of changes in this little moment.
Yeah.
But then we have her. Sally goes out. Hachi had like left a note saying that he went off to see an old friend, and he says thank you to Sally in the note as well. And she says like, do you really think he'll come back? And Goro's just like, yeah, he said he would. It's just this little, I don't know, kind of silliness.
But I
to Goro.
But I don't think. But it's actually silly. I think this is like, it is a silly Goro thing to say, but actually, the second time I read it, I was like, no, this is like a father. Like, he says, no,
yes,
Hachi's a man of his word. He'll be back. Like, it's his comfortingness that he's like, yeah, no, I know him. He'll be back.
Yeah, that's exactly the direction I was going in, because we have like when she's talking about like what she did, feel like a kind of idiot for taking him to bed like that.
I like how she mentions like the could be the sexual harassment. I thought that's like I mean, I didn't work in work culture 20 years ago, but this feels like a pretty mature response to this, like a pretty normal response to like think about it. But then like Goro has this very thing, and he says, "Oh, it's very considerate of you," and then it's like, what?
He has a lot of these moments where he kind of like takes a pause, drops his kind of like irony-pilled personality for a second just to say something really genuine, and characters are always kind of shocked by it.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, what? Did he just say something real?
Yeah.
Like,
but at the same time, back. I think it also like it's like she's not sure what he knows went on. Like he may be assuming that they actually had sex.
True.
Which is like she's like confused by it. But then he's like, yeah, no, I like your reading as well, where he's like, okay, I'm gonna drop the mask a little bit of being a silly dad. And
yeah,
then he's
exactly.
like, back on, woohoo! I just hit 100 kilometers an hour, whatever, something crazy. So, and then we go to the next page, and I just want to say this is the beefiest chomp I think I've seen in a while. Look at that! Look at that grill. This guy is going for it.
But yeah, so we're here in the airport, and Hachi's like, he's starting to look a little bit better. He's eating, he still has
he's eating food. Yeah, that's a good point.
You can still see the like cheekbone kind of thing. He does seem a little bit like malnourished still a little bit, but he's getting better. He's getting some of his roundness back. But we have this interesting thing here. The airport comms going on kind of in the background. We have this announcement about a lost child that really caught my attention. Ooh. And I was trying to think, like, is this going to be something important? But it doesn't seem like it's really brought up again. But the description I noticed on my second read through, it almost kind of sounds like a young Hachi. It's like it says, like, we're found and we're caring for a lost 5-year-old boy, Asian with black hair and black eyes, and wearing a black T-shirt, which Hachi's wearing right now, and jeans, and jeans,
sneakers,
black sneakers,
and a toy spaceship.
Carrying a toy spaceship.
Yeah,
and I was just like,
that's definitely a Hachi thing. That's a great point.
Yeah, so I kind of read it as like, I don't know, like Hachi's been lost and now he's found.
Yeah,
kind of
that's a cute thing. I like that. Yeah, that's really good. And then we just see, like, once you said, like, a big diversity of people in space. You see, like, Hachi makes them
again.
But you also see people who are in, wheelchairs and disabled. So it's not just like beyond skin color and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or ethnicity. So that's a really good thing. It's like all these people coming to outer space, and then it has a beautiful, like, what I love, Yukimura, like, like gradual panel of like, a man that looks very much like Hachi, but like has like just gestures, and Hachi's watching him, and that hug just reminds him of the other hug, and he's got to go back, and then now it just sends him in a state of thinking back to it. It's like, I have to see her, then I'll be sure. Like, then I'll be sure if I love her. I wonder how she is, and and then she's like, oh, they're here, and then he manages to get onto the thing. And then he goes and snoops around into her room, and this is another one of those things where you're like, okay, if there's Evangelion, there could be like another scene that could be a bit odd, like for example, he comes into here, and then the girl just comes out of the shower into her own bedroom or something, something like that, But then no, Yukimura is built different, and he just finds her will, and this adds a great moment later, and then Fee comes whizzing past. I love how like it looks like she's like floating quickly past him, like she's kind of like almost running, and like she's like, "Oh, Hachimaki, you're here." I don't know if you have anything to say. I kind of breezed through.
Yeah, no, you're good. I had
section.
A little thing I did want to say, with Tanabe. Oh my god. No, I had it and I lost it. That's fine. So,
let's capture it later.
Yeah, I'll hopefully remember what I was thinking. But, usually, so he goes in with the will, and usually when we have these scenes like this, where, like, it's a very, like, media thing in general, not even just anime, or characters, like, snooping around where they shouldn't be, and then they panic and put something in their pocket. I usually absolutely despise this kind of thing, because usually it just sets up some melodrama and doesn't really do anything.
True,
but,
so true, yeah.
Yeah. But I love about Yukimura, he does not waste his time with stupid stuff like that. He is using this moment as a way to get that will to Tanabe.
Mm-hmm.
And not to...
Yeah.
And the theme, exactly. It's not as a means of, like, forcing a rift that they have to repair. It's not melodrama, and I love that. It's just, trying to it's going to be used well, and I appreciate that a lot.
And it's almost dispersed instantly. Like, you've watched Fullmetal Alchemist, right?
Yes.
Like, this is kind of like the stopwatch. Like, and it's kind of like, in the sense, like, you know, it's opened instantly, and then the regret of opening is instant, and it actually makes the characters come closer. It's not like a thing that's drawn out over 2 episodes. It's like,
exactly.
It's done quickly, and instantly we opened it, and we're like shocked with this like revelation that is kind of like Kung Fu Panda when they open up the scroll and it's like nothing's on it.
Yeah,
that's what I thought of. And then you're like, hang on, why is nothing on it? And then you're like, that's more your curiosity about it than like, oh no, Hachi's going to be in trouble. He's done something stupid. He's done something wrong. Now there's all this drama about, oh no, they're going to fall out. No, it's more like, okay, why is Tanabe not written anything? You know, why? And then now you got to figure it out. And you know, and then you get this picture of Hachi, and he looks so much younger. You know, just like him on the plane, he looks so much better. He's all shaved, he's looking good. Yeah, and then there's just some other, you know, just beautiful environmental shots. You know, like, oh, you got the atmosphere of the windmills, and then the bus is driving in, and he's asking for directions from a local, and then he's walking along the road, and he's looking at all, you know, all the dragonflies, and showing that it's like it's more a smaller town out in the countryside, and he looks at the pair of dragonflies, and he probably thinks of him together with Tanabe on the moon, because we've got the moon in the background. I haven't seen him
smile like this in a while.
Yeah, it's just like beautiful, just small things, and he only gets there at nightfall. There's like traversal of time, and then he has this like, okay, we've had the cinematic like building of moments, and now we have a bit more goofy conversation stuff where he's like, hi, I'm here, you know.
So I actually have remembered what I was going to say now.
Cool.
Very glad to say this.
Good stuff.
So when he's thinking about back on like the experiences he's had with Tanabe, and he says something like, I have to see her and then I'll be sure. That's when I finally clicked into my head the feeling I was feeling last volume. I don't know if you remember me saying this, but at the end of last volume, I commented on how there's this kind of feeling of regret and like dread I had when he said goodbye to them, and they went to like Yuri and Tanabe on the train. It's like something's missing. Like I'm forgetting something, and I think that's the answer to that feeling I was having, where like he left things unfinished with her, and he needs to know, he needs to talk to her about this, and because I expected that would be something he would struggle with during the mission, but we had this whole volume for him to figure out that feeling, and now he's finally able to act on it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But so he goes to see Tanabe at her house, and I love how Tanabe kind of hardly questions this, and she's just happy to see him. I feel like she doesn't even she does say like, what are you doing here? But out of like, excitement, like doesn't even question it. She's like, well, I can't believe you're here. That's so cool. Hey, Mom. Like, yeah. She's just kind of getting into it. I really love that. It's very sweet. But we see her parents again. Her mother again. We saw Koji earlier. We saw under the tree. But here again, this reminds me of like the little discussion we had when we saw the full Hachi's full family at the house having dinner. It's just like Yukimura loves family, and he's really good at writing these kind of family dynamics and like being really endearing and sincere, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, for sure. It's just such a fun little dynamic, and the mum's being cheeky, and it's kind of like Aina's mum, you know, like in a way, maybe. Who knows? I mean, I'm making
that character wasn't even a thing.
So, but, yeah, of course. I mean, Yukimura didn't even write her, right? But it's got this kind of like very blunt to the point attitude about stuff, and it just makes it quite funny. Like, actually, it's kind of like Hachi's mom.
Yeah, a lot like Hachi's mom.
Yeah,
but sure. So I didn't really have too much to say about this whole thing. Like, her mom brings up that they're just like that Hachi's here to ask for their daughter's hand in marriage, and this kind of has this whole gag about it, which is really cute. But I like how Hachi doesn't really go and like deny it or anything, like panic or anything like that. Like he's like, whoa, okay, but he doesn't like go like, no, of course not, or anything like
Yeah.
that, because he does love her, and he knows that.
And yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's also not like melodramatic. It's not like gonna be like, oh no, you don't love me. Oh, I'm gonna storm out of the house. No, they need friendship. It's just like, it's just an overbearing mum, and it's like probably a mum that they've met in real life, and it's just kind of like, she's a small town mother, and she's like only heard this one boy mentioned, and so it's
this
kinda
reminds
like
me of my
a joke.
grandmother.
Yeah.
There's like a story that my mom told me about when she first met my dad. She met him at like a bowling alley or something, and she like offhand mentioned him to my grandmother, and then my grandmother went and asked around everybody at the bowling alley and like tried and like found my dad
Oh my word.
to bring them together. It's like this overbearingness, and it's adorable, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But we have this little moment here.
It's like
I'm
the
just
cheat
thinking
that
about
only,
it now.
only mothers could get away with.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Only they could get away with it. But this little moment here, I'm just noticing it now. Like the stuff we've been saying about like how Tanabe and Koji are kind of like have this closer understanding than the mom, and
True.
they kind of pointed out again right here where like he agrees with her that like not to make a whole big deal of the Hachi thing, and Yukari says like 2-1 I lost.
Yeah,
I feel like
I love that expression from the mum. Actually, I love that 2-1 I lost. Like, it's
I
just
do love
like
that.
so genuine, and she's just like, fine, sure, like I'll drop it,
Yeah, exactly. And I like this little panel here of the silent panel of Tanabe looking down right after that, and I feel like knowing what she says later after they leave, I feel like this is her thinking about how much she just loves them.
Yeah,
That's exactly
so
what I get from
sweet.
this.
And I like the contrast in the dads. We'll get to this later, but like they have the same alcohol, and Tanabe's dad is very measured with his alcohol consumption.
Yeah, compared to Goro.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Who is like, he gets himself knocked out on the floor at the end of the night.
Yeah, but like this is the rock star that is controlled.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
And
just a
look at him
fun
now.
character. Just a fun character.
So then we have Hachi and Tanabe leave together because they're going to be going back up into space together. And we have this moment where the parents call out as they're leaving to say, "Achan, when will we see you again?" And I immediately got this feeling of dread and death flags for Tanabe. That's immediately what came to my mind. And what I found so interesting about it is that like it's almost like Tanabe felt that same exact feeling, because she kind of walks ahead silently of Hachi, and Hachi thinks back again about how his mom said the same thing about the importance of coming back alive. That's an astronaut's primary responsibility. And he tries to talk to her about like thinking her parents are great, and she just doesn't respond. And this is where he brings up the will. And again, I love it that it's just not, he brings it up, says that he took it and wants to apologize. But more importantly is the fact that she's crying. She felt the same kind of like dread, the death flags when they asked when they'll see her again. And that definitely made me very emotional. I definitely cried when I first read this part. But she explains why she hasn't written anything in the will. She says, "I'm not that smart, and I can't write very well. Something like thank you or goodbye or sorry I didn't make it." And then she starts to break down and says, or maybe to explain why I wanted to come to space. And we have this gorgeous panel. She says, "I love them, everything. I love everything about them. That's why." And I really like this panel, and Yukimura does this a lot. These character defining moments where they're saying something super important, and you have this starry background. Even in Vinland Saga, I remember watching the video of you and Ari.
This is an Ari.
And he goes like, another star moment.
This is exactly like Gudrid when she's like, before she gets on the ship.
Why can't I be a sailor?
Yeah.
And then Sigurd with this guy above him saying like, Iceland has never been in war in like all of its history, and that's why and that's important or something like that. And I love this. It's just like, even in Vinland Saga, this love for space, you still see it there.
Yeah.
And that, because it's so funny looking back on this, and I'm trying to see connections where you could see the ideas of Vinland Saga sort of being planted. But realizing how much of Planet S I see in Vinland Saga now
it's so good.
Is an even more special thing. I can't wait to do another reread of Vinland just to kind of have that context of Planet S, especially like prologue era.
Yeah, and I love how Yukimura does tears as well. It's like he always loves to like have snot come out their nose.
Just the
unreal,
ugly
like,
truth of crying.
Yeah, ugly crying, and I kind of like how like we're told that Tanabe was not the fastest at bringing learning stuff like learning language and stuff.
Yeah, that's
and this
something
kind of
interesting.
ties
I
back
didn't
into her
realize
not
that.
being able to write so well. Like it's hard for me to explain.
Right.
And she like says, or maybe explain why I wanted to go to space because she couldn't answer her dad when he asked her. And she was just like,
I didn't think about that.
Intuition. Yeah, well, I didn't think about it until you read it out again. It's like, yeah, it's like this tying back to her not quite understanding, and it's like this is why them as a couple work so well together is because Tanabe doesn't have to explain herself to Hachi because he experiences the same thing and they've got that connection.
Yeah. And this is like, this is just so, because this is where the cat comes back in. This is her cat. This is her equivalent. It's Koro going off into the storm alone. She goes off into the storm of space and she doesn't want her parents to be hurt if she doesn't come back. And she doesn't write a will because she doesn't even want to think about that idea. She can't even comprehend what she could say to comfort them. And then we have, I love this, we have Hachi hug her the same way that she hugged him, and it's just so perfect. This is like the culmination of Hachi's growth. He's kind of nearing completion here, and he's kind of ready for the mission. Now, this is what kind of sold me on Hachi's ready. Hachi's gone through what he needs to go through before he can go off now. Yeah. And the way he's just holding her, I love it so much. It's
I also love small detail I just noticed is that he's only got his backpack on one shoulder, so then she's able to cry into his shoulder, into his shirt, and not into the backpack thing. I just noticed that now. That's kind of like a cool little detail. Like, yeah.
It would have been cool if he like always, if like he had it on both shoulders at first and he took it off the other shoulder, anticipating that. But he did always have it on the other shoulder. But still, that's a really good.
He's
point.
a cool guy. He doesn't put on his backpack. Okay.
Either way, Yukimura left the shoulder open intentionally, kind of thing.
Cool.
I do like that. There is one thing I thought here when she's talking about like crying into his shoulder and saying I love, and I don't know, like obviously we know she's been saying like I love them, I love my family, I love my parents, I love everything about them, but I almost wonder if she was going to say that she loves him too.
Yeah.
But
and then she's like, oh, I can't, like she just can't like say the words. And then we skip over to the next page, and it has an insect on it.
Another bug. I'm just noticing these now because you pointed it out.
Yeah, it's a cricket of some sort, so it's having that little cricket chirping in the background. Her eyes are red from, crying, which is a great little detail. Yeah. So, do you feel better? Yes. What a beautiful moon. Yes. It looks delicious. And it's just like a hilarious little bit, like, Tanabe, yes, we're astronauts. No matter where we go, our job is to come back alive. Which I think is...
Yeah.
Tanabe, which is... Yeah, I mean, we'll get to this more next chapter, but this is like a big point for Hachi. And he's like, and we will. And it's like, we've had this full transformation of...
Yes.
Hachi just wanting to go for space because he wants to be great for no reason. And now... instead of wanting to go out there, he's out there so he can come back home. Like that's the idea. And it's this kind of acceptance of like, he hated space and he wanted to go back home, but now he loves space and he's met Nono and he wants to stay in space and then he wants to only live in space. Spacemen are the only thing that matters, what you do in space and you leave your family behind like the other one. And then he's like,
now he's very balanced.
Now I love space. It's beautiful. Like the beautiful moon here. Enjoy the vastness of it, but we always go out there because we will eventually come home, and we will. You know, it's like, it's this promise of not, like, literally not getting lost in the vastness of space, not getting lost, like, in mentally, just getting crushed by it, but also not physically as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I just love how now he sees him coming home as an absolute. He doesn't see himself as the cat anymore that's dragging itself to inevitable death. No matter how far he goes away, he will come home. And that this last page just screams to me, we will both die, and I absolutely hate it. Like, I know, like, after I'm finished reading this, anything happens to either of them, this page will absolutely destroy me. But I feel like the last thing I really want to say about this chapter is that this chapter really finally sold me on their romance.
Yeah.
Just like the way their conversations were written this chapter. It's just like it reminds me of, it just feels real, the way they talk. I could see their connection now, and it feels genuine. It doesn't feel rushed anymore. And this is a really well developed relationship.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, I'm very happy with it too. I still would say it's too quickly done for my taste, but I think everything in this manga is done too quickly for my taste. But that's not a bad thing. I think the plot's fast, the character's fast, because Yukimura wants to punch us with themes. And I think if you can appreciate that about Yukimura's work, you can get into it's like when you're reading it takes you 2 times to read it to enjoy this manga optimally. I feel like it's not like a first time, oh, this is super well built up. And I do wonder if he manages to plot the rest of the manga later after this, because I think we kind of alluded to this before. What we think now Hachi's ready, we're going to go on this mission, there's going to be a lot more plot to it. And so I think, for example, you could just add like some more slice of lifey scenes with them interacting, and Yukimura is a new mangaka. He's putting in all his effort into making the art look as good as possible. He's trying to be as optimal as possible, and he really wants to get his themes going. He probably has this idea of wanting to write Vinland Saga by this point. He's in the manga, like he's not wanting to dawdle around, and so he's that's just how he is, and that's okay, and that's his style. But now rereading again, their chemistry is really enjoyable to watch, and I'm looking forward to more of it. That.
I feel like what really helped for me is that like this wasn't immediately after like their kiss and hug moment. Like we had enough time both like with them together, but also time with them apart to digest it on their own terms.
That's very true.
I feel like that's what really helped me like start to really like this relationship, and it was like we had time with them apart to explore it.
Yes. No, that's very, very true.
Cool. Okay, so another side note tangent. These little 4-panel gag comics that Yukimura puts in.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't talk about them like at all. I think in the past 2 videos, I kept remembering as I was going through my notes. I was like, oh, we should make a little time to talk about this, but I kept forgetting. So I wrote it in bold in my notes to talk about it. I think these are really cute. He does these for Vinland Saga too, and they're always adorable. It's just like little character moments, bite-sized. It's very nice. But the one that stuck with me was it's this one's titled "Sorry Guys," and it's just like Fee and Yuri talking, and Fee is like, oh no,
yeah.
So it's like nothing at all. I'm doing nothing, and Yuri's like, oh, what are you talking about? And she's like, me, I'm hardly in this volume. And he's like, oh yeah, join the club.
Yeah.
Just like this acknowledgement that they weren't really well utilized here, but it almost seems like a promise that they'll be back. I think for the next, like back and focus a bit more, which I hope so. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any any stuff? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm trying to read this Fee one again. Bob sat really pounding the host hard. Look at that, and she's like smoking her thing, and then like he says, "What's happening, Fee?" And then she like goes, "Ah," and then changes the channel really quick. It's like just one of these weird like little gags, I guess. Yeah, it's really cute.
Yeah, I do quite like these. it almost like makes up for how fast of a story it is, because you don't really get these kind of slice of lifey kind of moments.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like that these are here, just more ways to flesh out and characterize. But yeah, did you have anything else you wanted to say about these little 4 panels? I mostly wanted to point out the Fee and Yuri thing. Cool.
I mean, I like the Super Mario meme. You know,
it is. Yeah, it's cute. All right. So, chapter 16. And we just kind of have a little bit of a time skip, but Tanabe and Hachi are back in space, and they've just been kind of seeing each other during their off time. Like, I'm sure Tanabe's still working on the toy box. Hachi's still training, and sort of time's kind of slowly coming where he's going to have to go, but they've been trying to make the most of it. And
have you played a game like this before?
I have never played it, but I immediately thought of, did you ever watch No Game, No Life?
No, I haven't actually, no.
It's definitely not for everyone, but
no, I've heard it's like isekai chess, which and it's like everybody wants the second season. I've seen the memes.
The
openings.
I watched it a long time ago. Yeah, openings are banger. But they play this game and with like a really cool twist. So I just thought of that. Yeah, but this game's really cute. I love it.
Yeah, I think I've played a game similar where you have to. It's just the letters, not the sound or something. Yeah, so I think there are English versions, but yeah, no, this is
you could definitely do it with the letter. I mean, I think I've probably heard of like the sound version being played in English too, but it definitely is like it kind of has to be the sound in Japanese because of the way Japanese like language and lettering works.
I feel like you probably could have got away with translating in English, but like the purity of this wordplay is more fun in Japanese, I think. So
yeah, exactly. I wouldn't want to twist things around to make it work in English. I'm perfectly fine with it. Just kind of acknowledging the fact like these are Japanese people, it just like it is what it is. And I do quite like it. And I especially quite like how Hachi has the absolute riz here and with the like cutest proposal I've ever seen in manga, just so casually. Yeah. Like I love that.
Almost it's like Edward Elric Winry tier.
Yeah, just like cute, I
a little cheesy.
I give you half of you, you give me half of me. Yeah.
Appropriate amount of cheese. For sure.
I think it's so interesting that we haven't really talked about the chapter titles much, but this one's just called Hachimaki.
Oh, really?
Which is so interesting to me because it doesn't. I guess it is sort of the completion of his development, so maybe that's why. Like this is like Hachi's sort of coming to complete understanding. But then again, at the end of last volume, I thought he came to a complete understanding. So Yukimura could like certainly throw him for another loop in the next volume, and it would probably fit. But I still get the feeling that he's kind of at his completion here, and now the story's going to be more about how he deals with what happens, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. And I really like. I keep on thinking to flip the page, but then he's like, "Marry me," and he doesn't look at her really, and he says, "Now it's your turn," and she's like, "Yes," and he's like, "Ha, you lost the game."
Yeah, I love that. It's just so cute. It feels like so real. It's definitely gotta be like Yukimura writing from the honeymoon phase of his relationship kind of thing.
For sure.
That it just has that feeling. But so yeah, after that sort of proposal, this is basically makes them go back to Hachi's family and essentially let them know that this wedding is going to be happening, and Tanabe meeting his family and all that. Tanabe's hair looks a little bit longer here.
Yeah, true. Is she gonna go through? Oh, she's gonna go through the mother arc. Like Gudrid. To your mother, you need to have long hair.
Oh my god, no, yeah, I think you're probably right. That's funny.
I love her fashion sense. Just like sweaters and
she's
shirts.
Adorable. I absolutely love her.
She's got the swagger. And then
sorry. Yeah,
they just look so young here, and then the mother's like a little bit stunned, and the dad's like, "Oh no, responsibility. I need to be grown up here." And it's like he doesn't know how to deal with it, so he then is like, "Oh, we need to just get drunk."
Yeah. I do quite like how like she's just shocked at how normal of a person Tanabe is, and she's like, "Are you sure you want to be with my son? He's an idiot."
Yeah, that's so funny. Just the burn, and it's like, okay, let's get drunk. It's like, oh, what did your parents say? You know, my parents are fine with it. They're really nice. Okay, I see, and I like Utara in the background. Kyutaro, sorry, in the background, and he's got these cool little I like this. It's very Yukimura of like expressions, and there's small character expressions in the background.
Yeah.
Like if you look at them, you can just get characterization from it, but it's not like in your face.
I really like how Kyutaro has like this new design, and he's kind of grown into his own in a way. I really do like that. I'm pretty sure we did see that.
Cool. I like it.
Yeah, we did see this design last volume, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's this. A lot of this is like just this kind of lovely family banter that Yukimura is really good at writing, like I mentioned earlier with Tanabe's family. But there's just one moment that really stuck out to me, where Kyutaro kind of calls Hachi out on, and then Hachi acknowledges the selfishness of wanting to marry Tanabe now. And like I just think back to volume 1 and 2, where Hachi and Kyutaro probably would have gotten into some big argument over like Kyutaro calling him out on something, and Hachi be like, "You're just a kid, you don't understand," and all that. But Hachi approaches this in such a mature way, where he's just like, "Yeah, I am being a bit selfish, and this is a big sacrifice for her, but I really want her to wait for me." You know, it's just like not calling him like his kid brother who doesn't get it. You know, and I really appreciate that growth for him.
Yeah, and then this is immediately punctuated by. Oh, it is easy. It is an easy, loving an astronaut. And then like the dad's like, "Damn right, let's drink." And then she's like, "Yes, let's drink." It's like there's like passive aggressiveness, and they said, "This is a big step, Hachi. You're part of a couple now," which is interesting. You know, the dad's reminding him of the responsibility. You also have a shared life. Yes, I know. And then he's getting drunk, and he's like, "Hee, perfect. Let's get plastered."
He's like, "I've done my duties. That's my serious quota for this conversation."
Yeah, that's all the seriousness I need. That's my dadness. Kyutaro, get the glass too. Are you being serious? Awesome. And then the mom's like, "No, he's not being serious. Stop it." And I guess he wasn't serious about it because he's plastered. Everybody's outside. You know, the mom's cleaning up. Like, the dad's being irresponsible. Then Kyutaro's outside doing his rocket, which is cute. Like, his rocket's gone so far.
Yeah. The thing with Goro being kind of irresponsibly drunk and passed out while the mom's cleaning, it does like kind of, you know, contrast a bit where he says like you have to share your life to Hachi. It's almost like a don't be like me kind of thing. Don't make my mistakes.
Yeah.
And then he proceeds to continue making the mistakes because that's who he is.
Yeah.
But so yeah, we have this conversation where Hachi's just kind of asking Tanabe what she thinks of his family. And she's like kind of like surprised and relieved that they're so normal. And I like that she says the mother is nice, because the mother is like a super underrated character. I feel like upset with myself that I keep forgetting her name.
Yeah.
Like, she deserves all the respect in the world.
I also like how she's like sneezing in the background. It's just like normal, like, oh, she's normal, so she's sneezing, of course, because that's just like a normal thing to do. She's not like pretentiously pretty or perfect. Like, no, she sneezes. Like, I like that.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I kind of looked at it as like, I could feel someone's talking about me.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Which is kind of a funny little gag, but yeah. It doesn't really matter. But, yeah, so Tanabe kind of like had this expectation that they'd be a bit weird. And I like how this kind of just goes on a weird little tangent where Hachi's like, yeah, maybe we'd wear our spacesuits around the house. And she's like, yeah, because Earth would be like an alien world to you guys. And then Hachi's like, yeah, we actually are aliens infiltrating their space program. And she's like, yeah, and like your family's actually you're actually Jovian, and this mission's your chance to get back to your motherland.
Yeah.
And then it kind of like goes into, she takes like her pause, and then like half joking, she's like, I guess that means you won't be coming back. And this kind of like very, very heartfelt moment to kind of like take you out of the silliness of it. And like through her joking, like she expresses her very real concern, and I like that Hachi can see that, and he says that no matter how strange it seems, he's human and he will be coming back. And this cheers Tanabe up, and I love her little smile in this panel. It's very cute. But I really like this conversation. I like how they just kind of bounce around these just different nonsensical scenarios based on whatever comes to their heads. Like, just keep building off each other. It reminds me a lot.
Like the fun chemistry.
It reminds me a lot of talking with my girlfriend. We have this very similar dynamic where it's just like, you know, it's the way you talk to somebody. You just can't.
It's just stupid, but it's fun.
You can't do it with somebody else that you don't have the same love with. It's a certain type of love. They're just like, you're on the same wavelength doing this stupid bit together.
Yeah.
And I just love it so much.
Yeah. And it's like, and I think this is the type of stuff that, you know, I really like. This like sells the relationship. It's like when they both go delicious to the moon. They're like quirky and stupid. It's like they're not afraid to be silly in front of each other. It's like, yeah, it's not quirky and like, oh, look how unrelatable I am by how special and weird and quirky I am. It's like my gimmick.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is a very natural like silliness to the conversation, which I think is really, really nice.
Yeah, and I like how even after the serious little moment, they kind of go back to it. And she's like, yeah, you're human. You're only human. Hachi's like, yeah, it sounds like the name of a rock band. She's like, yeah, you can play guitar in it. And they just go back on their stupid tangent. It's so funny. I love it. But this kind of gets interrupted by Kyutaro with the rocket.
Yeah.
And I really like this. Just like before with like the weird, like, well, the conversation Hachi had about like his selfishness, wanting to marry Tanabe now and all that. Hachi just approaches Kyutaro in such a different way now. Where he's like, before is like, you know, my kid brother doesn't understand anything. He doesn't know the realities of space. But now he's like, he's seeing Kyutaro with the rocket, and he's like genuinely praising him for his accomplishments, and he kind of like sees him on the same level now as like another person, not just his little brother. And I really, really like that. It's kind of like a humbling, I guess, that like he's kind of gotten more humble, gotten empathy that like ever since like Tanabe kind of shook him up. It's like it is like a lot like you know, like Thor's Helga, like the finding the wife like makes you leads to your betterment, I guess. Like Thor's who he was before like Ylva, and how Helga changed him. That same kind of dynamic. But it's kind of cool seeing it happen in real time here.
True,
and
for sure.
Like, obviously, Planet Test is a very fast story, but it still feels like the right amount of time was given to it, where you can see Hachi in these scenarios now, and you really appreciate how far he's come.
Yeah, and I like how he's like, oh, this is number 31. You know, they have a nice like, oh wow, that's a really far. Like, then like Kyutaro is always comparing himself to the best of the best. He's kind of got that mindset that is very similar. And he's like, then he says, a rocket's only good if it doesn't come down. Mine aren't that good. And then we get this nice little, you know, internal monologue from Hachi.
So good.
Now we have another insect there. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I just thought I'd point out. And it's like, they only head in one direction at a constant speed, with just one purpose. So brave, so beautiful, driven only by the will to escape. Such a sad existence. And before this, he kind of says they're so simple, rockets. Humans were there once, and now... ... You know, like... And I think this, to me, let me get on my notes again just to read them. But this is like... This is Hachi before, you know? Hachi's thinking of only going to space. He's thinking of not coming back down. He's not thinking of coming back. He's brave. It's beautiful. He doesn't want to diminish the dream, but it is a sad existence. And we've realized this volume why it's sad. And in volume 2, why it's a sad existence and why it's unfulfilling and what it's missing the point of.
Coming back, surviving up there. Yep.
And then, you know, it's so dark and like... You know, the ship is the one creating this light on the horizon, but it's so dark as space has swallowed up the horizon, just like that day. And he thinks back to the time he was lost in space and he last talked to this cat, and then he sees the cat.
Yep.
Is it
that panel, like his
so
kind of like shock seeing the cat is kind of crazy. Like the shading on that is so.
And
it's almost like a horror manga kind of. Yeah.
I want to say something really quick. Like while Yukimura's drawings are fantastic. His ability to draw more 3D and structurally sound humans has gone so much better in Vinland Saga, and it's good
true.
here. But I just want to point out how good his how good he makes shoulders and proportional legs look. It's very, very impressive. Like here, Hachi just looks like he's taller than he should be, but the shading and rendering's beautiful anyway. But
yeah.
And then there's this,
I
yeah. Oh no, actually, say what you're gonna say, and then.
Sorry, just before we go off the rocket,
Yeah.
I do like that line he says, like, they're so simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not to say that, like, rockets aren't complex, like, machinery and stuff, but rockets just don't have the same concern that he needs to have as a person, the concern about coming back.
For sure.
That same connection to home. And that's what I found really interesting about that little line there. But
sure.
just continuing with the cat. Go for it.
Yeah, so this cat, I mean, I think what you say is perfect. Like, because I was thinking the same thing as, like, rockets aren't simple. The phrase, oh, it's not rocket science, is like a phrase for a reason, because it's complex. Yeah. But their goal is simple. But, yeah. Anyway, so he talks to this cat, and it is this combating of nihilism. It's like, life means something, that I'm part of this vast universe. Knowing that saved me. I was so angry for so long. I had anxiety, stress, and I thought that the solitude of space would make it all stop. But I was wrong. Now I know space is too dangerous and too wonderful to face alone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this like beautiful realization of like just small things in life that give it meaning. And it's not trying to find a vastness in space to give you purpose, but it's like the people around you that help save you from that. And then the cat's interesting because it's like, you can try all you want, nothing will change. The weight of exploring and discovering is far too great for humans to bear. You will never conquer space like you wish. And he's like, this reminds me of, not to bring up Fullmetal Alchemist again, but like of Edward conversing with the truth.
Yes.
And it's like,
yep.
Maybe so, maybe so, that's fine. But we've learned so much. We know how to survive in space. We've developed spacesuits that keep us alive while surrounded by death. The point is to survive. I didn't get that at first, but I do now. I'm not alone anymore. And that is why I'll survive. It's like humans aren't made for space. We bring this up again. Humans aren't made for space. And the fact that they are in space, they are surrounded by death, and they are persevering forward, that's what's remarkable. It's amazing. It's something to be congratulated that they are in space. It is mind-boggling. And this cat may have this omnipotent, godly view of you're so small and insignificant. But it's Hachi's realizing, like, no, what we've done here, maybe small, insignificant, doesn't matter at all. But that's fine, because what we've done is amazing, and I think it's amazing. And, and it has a great, thing again where it's like a beautiful, like, Yuri, Fi, and Hachi, like, seeing Tanabe, like, taking a smoke and her not being able to take it. And then the cat's like, that's your big revelation? This is where it kind of differs from Fullmetal Alchemist, because at this point Fullmetal Alchemist is like, no, you've got it, you've got the right answer. Here the cat's like, is that big of your revelation? How ordinary, like how normal, how unspecial you are compared to how you thought you were in the previous volume. And he says, I needed to feel ordinary. And then he's like, I think at this point, actually, this is where he's kind of like, the cat like nods with its tail. And he's like, good answer.
Oh, that's cute.
She is calling you, and then he disappears, Like, it's just like, yeah, it's good. I mean, I do wonder, like, this is so similar to that Fullmetal Alchemist conversation that I wonder if...
Like, at the end, at the end. Like, giving up the, transmutation.
Yeah, and so I do wonder if... Arakawa may have had inspiration from this. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's elsewhere, and Yukimura's got his inspiration from somewhere. It'd be so interesting to see how these things all build on each other.
Yeah, right? I didn't even consider that, but they are really so similar. Like, it's the same conclusion that, like, don't I don't need it because I have them. Like Ed says, that's a very good point. But yeah, I really like in here, like ending this, like Tanabe comes up to Hachi and she's like, "Were you talking to somebody?" And it reminds me of, you know, her mom coming up to her when she's talking to the crows. It's the same kind of thing.
True, so true.
Yeah, and it's just so I again, like I said before, the cat really like holds this volume together and bookends it here, and it makes this volume just feel like a complete work that I really, really love.
Yeah,
I just love how it all comes together here.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And just, you know, Hachi just coming to this conclusion that, like, because, like, notice this whole volume, he doesn't say a thing about getting his spaceship and getting his riches anymore when he comes back. Because, like, coming back from the trip was so matter of fact before, because he didn't even think about it. And now that he's thinking about it, about the idea of coming back, he's like, oh my god, like, space is huge. Like, what if I don't come back? And now that he's really got to think about it, he realizes the real reason coming back is so important. It's not so he can capitalize on the riches he gains from doing this. It's the spaceship is not even a thing in his mind anymore. This is about coming back to those he loves.
For sure. Yeah, no, that's so true. And I love the rocket. Like this time, like Hachi's like not scared by the rocket. He's like so like calm in the face of this massive launching rocket, and then it has this beautiful panel of the rocket shooting up and them looking at it. Good. And then at the end here, something really cool. Like Yutaro's like, I don't get it, love. What the hell is it? And it's like this feeling of like, he'll understand eventually, but he's too young. Yep. You know?
Exactly.
And he'll get there. He's really focused on his rockets at the moment. He's kind of like Hachi in that sense, you know. But it's just a small little comment that gives him a lot of characterization in a very
exactly
way.
I thought the same exact thing. It's just like that's set up for like you'll get it someday, kid. Like it's like Hachi doesn't need to point out that he's like a kid that doesn't get it anymore. You know, it's just like Hachi's out doing his own thing. He's not too worried about it anymore, and like Yutaro will show that kind of need for understanding himself.
Yeah,
I do really wonder how is Yutaro going to continue to be used. I'm still surprised at how much he gets brought back, and it's really cool to see him like he's kind of just growing in the background, and like I mean Hachi's gonna be gone for 7 years. What's he gonna be like after that mission's done? Like I didn't even think about that. Like 7 years, like this kid's like what? He's probably like maybe 16 now.
Yeah, no, he is 16, I think.
Yeah, so he's got like a ways to go.
And the next page is a cricket. So like the cabbage butterfly.
Yeah, what's with the bugs?
Yeah. All right. I really want to like flick through the pages, but I'm not going to because I really want to read it now.
Yeah.
Well, these conversations do to us here, folks. But yeah.
Wow. We went.
Yeah. 3 hours. This is what we do here. 3 hours.
Yeah. I always think like this will be the shorter one. And it never is. Even this time, I took notes in a different way this time, where I tried to avoid writing like an essay in my notes. I wrote like, oh, this thing was interesting, but we just kind of build it into the essay anyway when we talk about it. It's funny.
Very true.
But yeah, that's chapter 16. That's the end of volume 3. It's I really did quite like this volume. I felt like this was like the most cohesive one yet, and it felt like it had an idea it wanted to convey. It did feel like, again, it's kind of hard to shake this kind of feeling that it does retread a little bit of the same lessons that Hachi's learning. Especially, again, retreading, like, seeing Yuri go through a mini version of this in the beginning.
Yeah,
but
true.
Hachi just goes through it in such detail and with these just intricate steps of a step-by-step process. And like you said before, how he was, like, kind of all in one direction and then all in another direction, and now he's kind of at a balance. Yeah. And that finding that balance really gives this volume purpose, because again, like I said at the end of last volume, he felt kind of incomplete, like there's business left unfinished. And I thought that he'd have to grapple with leaving stuff unfinished on the mission, but he got the opportunity to grapple with it now and figure that out now, and I'm glad that Hachi got that opportunity.
I think the reason why Yuri had, like, feels like we're retreading the same ground is that Yukimura made a banging first chapter. It was so good that editors were like, dude, we didn't have confidence. We didn't know what to think of you as your first time writing your own manga because you're a young dude. Okay, make a full story out of this. We think it can do well, And so then Yukimura was like, oh crap, okay, I kind of imagine this to be a one-shot. Okay, it's not going to be as clean as I thought it was. And this is how it is because he hasn't got enough confidence in people around him, but maybe in himself to be able to actually do this. And then he's really worked on himself and really improved it. And I think that's probably what happened. And it's just one of those interesting, industry facets that affect the piece of media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like with Vinland Saga, it kind of introduces itself in a very generic way compared to Planet Test. And we mentioned this before when we were reading Volume 1. We talked about how this introduction was so good and stuff, and it really kind of showed who Yukimura is as an author. But I guess with Vinland Saga, he didn't really feel the need to kind of show all of his cards.
He's
initially
playing the long game. He's using the first 2 volumes, the first 16 chapters. He's playing the long game to get you invested because the 16 chapters just after Thor's dies or on Thor's death. And then you're able to get okay, we've introduced Askeladd, we've introduced young Thorfinn, we've introduced Thor's. And
Thor's has introduced the theme.
Yeah, exactly. Fine. Thor's has made the thesis statement. And I think, this is what Vinland Saga does so well, is that Thor's makes this massive proclamation. A true warrior needs no sword. And you're like, okay, what the heck does that mean? That feels like such a basic, such a naive understanding of how the world works. And this is going to go in tangent, but we as readers understand what Thor's is saying intellectually. We're saying, okay, he's like, a true warrior shouldn't be fighting. We can kind of get that from a true warrior.
Yeah.
But you don't truly understand it, like Thorfinn, until you go through that journey with Thorfinn, and that's how you grow, that's how you understand. And that's why, if Vinland Saga was to start on chapter 167, with them leaving to Vinland, we would not be on the same page as Thorfinn, and we'd think, this guy's an idiot, this guy's stupid, this guy is way too naive. We'd be like Ivor, right? And what the mangas try to wrestle with you is no, we're going to go on this journey of it's such a simple thing. It's so many times in my life, even though I'm really young, I've been told things by pieces of media, by wise people I know, in words, but I haven't felt it and I haven't understood it because I haven't experienced it. This is what media does so well, is that you're able to experience something without having to experience it the hard way. Say you see all these things about enjoying the people you're around you and spending time with your loved ones, but then a loved one finally dies and you realize what it actually means when they're gone. And it's you kind of kick yourself a little bit because everybody around you tells you this, and then you're like, oh crap, I should have listened to them. But in a way it's a catch-22 because you don't really know it until you learn for yourself from your failures. It's like a weird thing, and that's what makes Vinland Saga so special, because it's I'm going to make you go through this journey so you understand my point of view, and hopefully we can get
then I can tell my story.
I can tell my story. And Planet Test is warming up to that and just trying to be really punchy thematically. And it feels it feels a bit like the rambles of someone who's very thoughtful, philosophical in a way, without trying to be pretentious about it. And that's what Yukimura is trying to do. He's trying to express his inner monologues through art. And I think that's, Yukimura kind of admits to that with the whole lovers discrimination thing. I don't think it's a topic that's really come up again in Vinland Saga, but it's just something that Yukimura thought of in the shower once, kind of probably, right? And then he's tried to weave it into Vinland Saga's themes, Anyway, this feels... Sorry, a bit of a ramble, but that's the capstone.
No, that's okay. I mean, ultimately, the real intrigue I had with Planet Test was to compare and contrast with Vinland Saga. And, this is ultimately, I feel like, even though it is a review and analysis of Planet Test, it is kind of an exploration of Yukimura.
Yes.
And trying to understand Yukimura as an author a bit better. So, obviously.
And Yukimura makes it so much fun because he's such a lovely guy. It makes me want to understand him more, without a doubt. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. Did you have any other overall thoughts about this volume in particular?
No, I didn't. It's just fantastic, just good stuff. And if you haven't looked at Plan Test yet, go do it. And we'll try and read the manga for next time. I think that's what we'll try and do. If we don't, we may just make it into another
You mean
video.
watch the anime?
Watch the anime. Sorry, yeah.
We'll try to read the manga.
Yeah, we'll definitely
read
read the
that
manga.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
So yeah, next time will be volume 4, Japanese volume 4, and the second half of Omnibus volume 2 in English. And so the next volume actually is split into 2 parts, and it's a bit longer. There's a volume 4 part 1 and part 2. So next month we will either have a video that is just part 1 of volume 4, or we'll do the whole volume. We're pretty much just going to read and see if I guess it makes a cohesive thematic to talk about part 1 and part 2 separately or not.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
either way, we'll read to the end of part 1 and talk about it and just see if we want to keep reading or talk about that as a whole.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, if it gets more plot focused, Yukimura may not be as snappy with the themes, so it may just work better as a whole, as Mir said. So yeah.
Cool. All right, yeah. So let's close this out. Jarkey Bacon, do you want to plug yourself a little bit before we close?
No, I don't think I need to. One thing you
feel
could
like anybody
watch
who's watched this
yeah. One thing you may have not known, if you guys are big fans of Vinland Saga and you want to see my thoughts on who the strongest characters are in Vinland Saga, I made a little collab with Real Life Ryan recently. So that was a fun hour video. If you want to watch an hour video past this 3 hour and 15-minute video we've got going on here. So yeah, that was fun. So
yeah, I still need to check it myself. Check that one out myself. But yeah, I'm Mir. You guys know me. You can find me on Twitter @itsmir. Or I talk about manga, usually Vinland Saga, but I talk about a lot of other stuff too. Mm-hmm. And I'll probably be going off about how good Planet Test is as I read through the next volume.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have a Vinland Saga chapter review to plug since Yukimura has not dropped a new chapter since the last Planet Test video. So
come back next week for the review, because there'll be another 9 days.
Fingers crossed.
9 days.
Fingers crossed.
Come on, Yukimura.
Yukimura, I love you, man. Let's drop the chapter.
Oh, I mean, actually, Mir, if you wanted to,
Sure.
I think what we may do for Vinland Saga anime, me, Ari, and Kyle are probably going to be doing like a monthly review of the 4 episodes of Vinland Saga that month. So if you want to join, I'm sure they wouldn't have any qualms of you joining. So if you want to, and it's one of those things like,
I'd happily do that.
Yeah, like or like say if you couldn't make it 1 month or whatever, we can pop in and out and be inconsistent. So it doesn't like you have to commit to all 6 months as well. So if you want to kind of join in, it could be a nice perspective. Because we need to get some positivity in there. Well, I know Ari's very positive, but we need to fight this Kyle entertainment.
I'm a very aggressive positive. I've seen Ari talk. He's definitely a bit more of a
passive,
just like, oh, that's all right.
I like it.
To each their own.
Pretty good. No, actually, no. Recently, they were having they were like Kyle really hates the new anime for Chainsaw Man. Not really hates. He's just like. He way prefers the manga. Same thing with Kyle for everything, right? He's like, anime 6 out of 10, manga's 10 out of 10. Read the manga. That's his opinion, right? Ari's like, the anime's better, whatever. And so they were talking about it, and they're like, this is really interesting because they were talking about like, what's the different appeal of Chainsaw Man with each other, and like an amicable disagreement where it's just fun to talk about why stuff is and not getting personal about it. So
for sure.
Oh, well.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess everyone could kind of find us there then, if that were to happen. I'll probably tweet something about that if that happens.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
No worries.
Cool. Okay, then that'll do it. Thank you again, Jarkey Bacon, for joining me. As always, your presence here is absolutely appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to write to them in chat right now and ask them about it.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again for watching. Anybody who's gotten this far, obviously, just thank you so much for wanting to listen to us and wanting to hear our thoughts. It's nice to see people getting a lot out of this. So I hope you, yes, you, I'm talking to you. I hope you got a lot out of this too.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.